Chapter 586. The reincarnation ring had very few effects, but it was very practical. Its effects were comparable to the walking elixir of immortality. Of course, there were many treasures in the god's world that could extend one's lifespan, but the effects were average. The most common one in the City of Dawn was the life potion. However, it could only extend one's lifespan by 1,000 years. Most of its uses were to heal injuries and increase the number of cell divisions, so that one's lifespan could be extended. The reincarnation ring's holy soul baptism could purify one's soul and heal internal injuries. It could also clear away the useless memories and impurities in one's soul. It could even activate certain soul attribute endowments and extend one's soul lifespan. Which of the two was more precious? Without a doubt, it had to be the holy soul baptism of the reincarnation ring. There were many treasures similar to the life potion, but there were very few that could cleanse one's soul and extend one's lifespan. Why did so many legendary professionals from the gods' continent enter the impassable continent in search of breakthrough? It was because their lifespan was about to be depleted. Taking into account race, techniques, secret techniques, and other factors, a legendary profession could live for tens of thousands of years, or even tens of thousands of years. But at the very least, ordinary humans, inferior fishmen, and orcs with legendary professions could only live for a few thousand years. In other words, the upper limit of one's lifespan was ridiculously high. If it was low, it would be frighteningly low. But this was the normal lifespan. This was because the professionals had not taken into account the frequent battles over the years. As long as there was a battle, every time they were injured, and every time they activated their battle energy and magic to heal their injuries, their life potential would be depleted. Was William's health recovery speed fast? It was almost at the speed of light. Every time he was injured, his endowment would be stimulated, and his heart would beat wildly. His bone marrow would frantically produce fresh blood, and the life force in his body would constantly surge to speed up his recovery. But even though his health recovery speed was fast, it also meant that his future lifespan was being depleted at an extremely fast speed. Even if his soul was severely injured, the soul force would appear to heal it. In this way, it could be explained. How many years of lifespan did William have left on the attribute panel? What about the other legendary professionals? Most of them had used up hundreds, thousands, or even tens of thousands of years of life force and soul force in their lifetime of battles. This was why many legendary professionals from the 7 continents of the main gods came to the impassable continent every year. There was no other way. As long as one was alive, there would be strife. Humans were the Jiang Hu. Before the awakening of magic, cultivation resources had to be fought over. Many legendary experts either didn't have enough lifespan for their bodies or souls. Among them, the lack of lifespan for their souls was the biggest problem. It wasn't something that a soul grand magus could help solve. Oh, martial sages, as saints of the soul, actually had some tricks up their sleeves. However, the number of soul sages was too small. The price of asking for their help was also very high, not to mention that the legendary professions had a very high level of life. Even if a soul-type saint wanted to help, they would have to pay a price. Of course, if there was a problem with the soul of an early, middle, or high-level professional, it would be much easier for a soul saint to help. At this moment, William had already dug a hole, dug a grave, and buried himself in the soil. He was only short of placing a tombstone on top of his head. In the limited space, he could not help but mutter to himself, "The ring of reincarnation means that I can save those powerful legendary professionals. As long as they pay the price, I can help them extend their lifespan, and they won't have to go to the impassable continent to seek survival. If I do this business, I'll make a lot of money." One of the skills, Holy Soul Baptism, is a godly skill. It will definitely allow me to gain a large number of friends. It's similar to a war-ending emperor who doesn't have much lifespan left. Ahem, forget it. Letting Caesar embrace the throne will give me greater benefits. However, there's a problem. I definitely can't reveal this world treasure. Otherwise, if I'm not strong enough, There will be many powerful professionals who will force me to extend their lifespan. Although they won't directly snatch the ring of reincarnation for my father's sake, they will still make me a tool. What I have to do now is to wait until the day I become a sage. When I have enough strength, then I can put it out in the open. But even if I become a sage, I'll probably have to find an excuse to say that the number of times Holy Soul baptism can be used is limited. Only then will I be able to use it for greater benefits. As for the skill reincarnation, it's even more awesome. As long as I consume 1/10,000th of my battle energy and magic points, I can allow a person to reincarnate with the power source, endowment, and their memories. Isn't this the reincarnation method that only sages and gods can do? Although soul-type professionals seem to be able to do this as well, they can only reincarnate themselves, not others. In that case, I can say that I've now gained another godly skill. In fact, if a genius general of the city of Dawn dies in battle, I can use the resurrection spell before he can die. As long as someone collects his soul in advance, I can let him be reincarnated and become a super tool that can never die. Ahem, it's equivalent to me giving them a death exemption card. My subordinates will definitely be very grateful to me. Prince William narrowed his eyes. But the creator of the artifact is the Nether River. The Nether River represents the materialization of the power of the rules. Therefore, the reincarnation ring is a natural artifact that was born in the Nether River. It's just like the natural treasures of the primitive world. There's a huge relationship between the two. It's very likely that some of the abilities of the reincarnation ring are used by the Nether River to work for me. However, this also proves that there are other artifacts in the Nether River. When I have the opportunity, I must go and take a look. Although most of the natural artifacts that were born in the Nether River have been taken away by the Nether God, I can still go and take a look if I have the opportunity. Especially since I have the reincarnation ring, my mother doesn't have to worry about the Nether River hurting me anymore. After that, Prince William decided to do as the Romans do and fell into a deep sleep in the grave that he had dug. He decided to pretend to be a dead person that had not awakened so that he could avoid encountering some unlucky events. He really decided not to wander around anymore. There were still 5 forbidden areas that he had not visited, and there might be various treasures and artifacts in them. But William felt that he had obtained great benefits. He reckoned that the goddess of luck and goddess of misfortune had taken nude photos of him. Damn, they're definitely lusting after my body. They are despicable. But Prince William was a handsome man who was willing to sacrifice himself. He would definitely not do anything to them. If he really encountered the envious and jealous goddess of the Nether God, he would be in deep trouble. Time passed. Many legendary professionals who had entered the small world of the Nether God did not feel the turbulence of the God's continent. Other than killing the awakened ones and searching for treasures, they were immersed in stagnant and chaotic time. But the fate of the entire God's continent had already happened. The speed of the 7 continents of the God's continent started to increase. Some of the coastal powers were also affected by the tsunami. If not for the fact that this was a magical fantasy world where the continents were hard and there were countless water mages, the 7 continents would have been torn apart. Many of the coastal territories would have been completely submerged in the seawater. But the city of Dawn and the East Sea metropolis were also coastal cities, so they were very lucky to avoid this disaster. Because the legendary continent was moving west, the impact on the East Sea metropolis and the city of Dawn was very small. However, when this news appeared, it caused many coastal forces to feel uneasy. They began to build all sorts of defensive fortresses along the coastline. Shipyards also sprung up like mushrooms after a spring rain, and battleships were quickly built. The navies of the various powers received unprecedented strength, and water professionals became extremely popular. Almost all the powers were preparing for the future naval battles. Naturally, the city of Dawn would not fall behind. Moreover, William had already made plans for the development of the Navy in version 1.0. Ever since Lautner, the chief butler of the city of Dawn, knew that the merging of the continents was speeding up, he took out William's plan and started to make some preparations. He had to build at least 7 to 10 legendary warships. 50 epic warships, 300 Grandmaster warships. Only with such a scale could they have a firm foothold in the future naval battles. Then, they could ensure that the territorial waters of the City of Dawn would not be invaded. They could also ensure that the enemy, even if it was the fleet of the human empires, could calmly resist and even fight back. As for the other advanced and intermediate warships, they had to build at least 3,000. These warships were not for the regular army of the City of Dawn. They were to be sold to the players. If the players wanted to buy better warships, they would have to spend money. As long as they had the money, not to mention the legendary warships, William could even build a godly warship for them. How long was the super-large shipbuilding line in the City of Dawn? It was 5 kilometers long. On the southern side of the City of Dawn, besides 3 large ports and 2 civilian ports, there were no beaches or cliffs. They had all been flattened into shipyards. Almost every day, new warships would enter the sea. 3 of the shipyards that could build legendary warships were also being built at the same time. The earliest legendary warship was about to enter the sea. Today, Lautner took the time to visit the Dawn shipyard. He looked at the 313 meters long and 72 meters wide warship in front of him. It had 5 decks and hundreds of cannons. He could not help but ask, when can this warship enter the sea? How many people can it carry? Moonlight Elf Andrew, the chief shipbuilder of the Dawn shipyard, had been forcefully promoted to an epic professional by William's potion. He was shirtless, and his fingers gently slid across the railing of the ship. He looked fascinated as he said, "It will be able to enter the sea in 3 months. It can accommodate 5,000 people for a long period of time. It has the power of both water and air. It is cheaper than the airship, and the firepower of 600 cannons is unimaginable." So powerful? Lautner inhaled a breath of cold air. If an epic professional was not careful, he would be blasted into meat paste. Not only could the 600 cannons be loaded with magic cannons and cannons, but they could also be loaded with the 3 version of the Dawn Magician Gatling. Lautner had experienced it. The killing aura that could shoot 2,300 magical bullets per minute was the natural enemy of anyone below the epic level. It could even be said that even an epic profession could be shot to death if they stood still and had a weak defense. In short, the City of Dawn had more trump cards. After the magical modifications, its strength had become more and more powerful. Will the players doubt it? No. These blueprints had been contributed by the players. They had also received the rewards and titles as rewards. It was a huge gain. Chapter 587. A year had passed. When William returned to the empty space from the small world of the underworld god, he discovered that only 16 of the 35 people who had come here had returned successfully. Almost half of them had been left behind. They were either dead or kept as food. Who were the people from the legendary continent? Besides the prince who had used the invitation letter from the godly slaying temple, 4 the other 5 were reincarnations of gods. One of them was Akeler, who was both space-time and space-time. But even so, there was still one person who had not come out. That was the reincarnation of the god of day, the great enchanter Hermora. The thunder god, Thor, seemed to be related to this lady. He looked at the 3 warlock sages and wanted them to wait. But after some hesitation, he did not say it. Perhaps it was because he had found a girlfriend, so he had chosen to selectively forget about this ex-girlfriend. In particular, everyone had witnessed the danger of the small world. The underworld god was not dead, and the 4 gods under him were not dead either. Furthermore, all the professionals who entered the small world would encounter potential enemies. In addition, the godly slaying temple was eyeing them covetously. In addition, there was also the chaotic time factor. No matter what went wrong, Hermora might not be able to come out again. Then, the Time Warlock Sage looked at them emotionally. The small world of the underworld god can also be called the divine realm. There are 5 gods living here. You should have seen and sensed that the era of the arrival of the gods is not far away. Perhaps there are reincarnations of gods among you, but I still have to tell you that not only do you have the origin and memories of the past, but you also have the blood of the human race, elf race, and serpent race. You have friends who grew up together. You have lovers who loved each other. You have parents who gave birth to you and raised you. You have comrades who fought side by side. If the era of the gods' arrival really happens, if they really want to enslave us, I hope that you can stand up and stop them with a smile. All the best, Ollie. The Time Warlock Sage's attitude changed drastically. But the thunder god Thor, the god of war aloes, the god of swords Sodaros, and the others were all award-winning actors. Their expressions were normal, but no one knew what they were thinking. The Time Warlock Sage sighed. That's all I have to say. You may leave. Just as the time tunnel opened up again, his voice rang out once more. The current world of gods isn't very good, but it's still better than everyone becoming the servants of the gods, right? The City of Dawn. After William exited the teleportation hall, he did not release his aura to attract his subordinates to welcome him. Instead, he walked to the magic tower. Moses, who was cultivating, noticed William's arrival. He turned around and smiled, revealing a joyful smile. It was obvious that the prince had been gone for a year, and wasps had been very worried and missed him. However, William returned safely and became much stronger. So the goddess of magic raised her head proudly again and snorted coldly. To the nether gods, small world, do you know how long it took me to calculate this location? I almost wanted to go find you. Especially look at your face. You might have been imprisoned by that little bitch of the goddess of death. His Royal Highness was startled in his heart. A woman's sixth sense was really awesome. However, he still chuckled and said, "Don't worry, I'm back. In fact, I'm one step closer to the sage realm." William did not mention the goddess of death. He sat cross-legged in front of Moses and tucked a strand of her hair behind her ear. Moses raised her eyebrows and didn't reject this flirtatious action. She just held the latter's suddenly restless little hand and said softly, "Do you know how worried I was when you were away for a year? Times have changed. The gods' continents are about to merge. According to my calculations, the continents will be very close to each other in 10 years. I know. This is also one of the reasons why I have to keep becoming stronger." William shifted his buttocks and stretched. At the same time, he hugged the goddess's waist. He exerted a little force and let her lean on his shoulder. Oh, the goddess did not resist. She was very obedient. In an instant, the feeling of conquest was overwhelming. This was the goddess of magic. William was so happy that he could not close his legs. He asked randomly, "What else did you calculate?" Moses tilted her head and looked at the sky outside. She muttered, "The era of the gods' arrival has begun. Many old friends will appear." That's right. Within these 10 years, there will be some deities that will gradually descend upon the world. In 10 years, the darkness invasion, the continents merging, and the gods' arrival will appear at the same time. The current City of Dawn is somewhat insignificant in the great era of the Fourth Era. When William thought of this, he could not help but grimace. He felt a headache. Moses suddenly straightened her body and looked at the helpless William. She suddenly patted his shoulder and said, "Don't you have me? Don't worry. Even if those old friends and enemies appear, I can protect you. If anyone dares to touch you, I'll pull out his tendons and skin him alive. I'll refine his soul into lamp oil and make him beg for death. Dirty, dirty." The goddess struggled to push William's palm away. She frowned and looked at him. "Why did you cover my mouth? Who knows what your hand was touching?" "I was touching you just now. Don't be ridiculous. It's mainly because you sounded like a villain. If there are enemies, just kill them. Why did you have to be so cruel?" William smiled awkwardly. He thought to himself, "Goddess, do you know that people who speak like that are usually killed by the protagonist? It's not a big mistake to be careful." Moses snorted indifferently. "You've read too many night novels. What do you mean by villains don't rebel? Come to think of it, I heard something recently." "What?" "Someone from the Magic Sanctuary wants to take over." "What? Is it the Warlock Sage?" The prince was shocked. The martial sage had been suppressed, but he was not dead. Where did this warlock saint come from to take over the martial sage? Was he not afraid that he would not be able to reach the sage state within 10 years? Was he not afraid that he would not be able to kill the martial sage and provoke a powerful enemy? If William had a feud with the martial sage, it was caused by Moses. But someone wanted to forcefully take over. It was as if the martial sage had gone out to work. Not only had his neighbor cheated on him, but he had also raised his child. He had even changed his surname. It was as if he had stolen his wife. Moses nodded. Yes, it's the warlock sage. He's a new warlock sage who has just become a sage. He's not a native of the legendary continent, but you should have heard of the power behind him. The god-slaying temple. William's expression changed. These people were relentless. Why couldn't they let the City of Dawn be the top power? But even if the magic sanctuary rose again, it did not seem to have too many conflicts with the City of Dawn. It's not the god-slaying temple. It's the Church of Magic. The Church of Magic? Damn, I should have guessed the relationship between the two. The corners of William's mouth twitched. In his previous life, Moses had disappeared and failed to overthrow the magic sanctuary. He had even died in the game capsule. That was why he did not know the relationship between the two. As for the Church of Magic, it was also a top power in the God's continent. It was also an old rival of the god-slaying temple. The doctrine of the Church of Magic was to believe in the Lord of Magic. Most of the members of the Church of Magic were mages. Basically, they were the believers of the Lord of Magic. Their ultimate goal was to wait for the arrival of the Lord of Magic. It was simple. They were all traitors. The location of the headquarters was unknown. It seemed to be on a small island, a broken world, or in an alternate dimension. But there were many experts in the Church of Magic. There were at least 5 warlock sages, and they had branches in many continents. But they did not dare to appear in public, because on many continents, it was a taboo to promote the belief of the gods. Unless they were too afraid of the power of the gods, they would be suppressed by many other powers. Just like Odin's Asgard, if he had not pretended to boast that he was the king of the gods, befriended the holy angel of the Seraphkin, and stepped into the divine realm at an extremely fast speed, the various forces would definitely have decisively killed him after they had tested him and determined his true strength. So the members of the Church of Magic were like a group of cockroaches hiding in the dark. They belonged to a sect that everyone wanted to kill. William originally thought that they did not come to the legendary continent because the magic sanctuary had stopped them from snatching resources. He did not expect that the magic sanctuary was an organization that was born out of the Church of Magic. As for the magic sanctuary of the martial sage, although they had the doctrine of believing in the Lord of Magic, they did not spread it widely. They only brainwashed the members of the magic sanctuary. In addition, the martial sage was a warlock sage. So many powers in the legendary continent did not target him too much. But ever since the martial sage was suppressed, it was enough to show how much the other powers were hitting him when he was down. However, the African brothers seemed to be very strong. Do you think that you are Europeans just because you have white skin after entering the God's world? William muttered to himself. He started to think about how to deal with the Church of Magic. Don't ask why he had to deal with them. As long as they were the enemies of Goddess Momo, they would be William's enemies. He would just have to destroy them. At this moment, Moses smiled and said, "Didn't the godly slaying temple invite you? You can totally agree to them. Are you saying that I should let the godly slaying temple interfere in this matter?" William's eyes lit up. This was actually a good idea. The people from the godly slaying temple did not care about their lives. Not only did they target all the gods, but they also hated the Church of Magic, the bootlickers of the gods. In the limited historical records of the God's world, the godly slaying temple and the Church of Magic had fought at least dozens of times. There were also 6 holy wars, and both sides had lost their sages. The blood feud between both sides was not just a single incident of stealing one's wife, but at least 10 times. It could be said that the only power that had a grudge against the Church of Magic was the godly slaying temple. However, cooperating with the godly slaying temple is like asking a tiger for its skin. I still need to think about it, lest they lead me into a trap, especially since I killed one of their purple armor in the underworld god small world. William raised his eyebrows. He did not hate cooperating with the godly slaying temple. In this world of adults, as long as there were common interests, they could choose to cooperate, even if they were at odds with each other in the past. However, whether or not the cooperation between the two sides should be too deep was something that needed to be considered. Chapter 588. After leaving the magic tower, William's thoughts were much heavier than what Moses had seen. This was because as someone who had been reborn, he knew more things than MOMO. The merging of the gods' continents and the various disasters that it would bring were not as simple as tsunamis and earthquakes. At this moment, Lautner sensed his aura and immediately flew over from afar. He panted and said, "Your Highness, you're finally back. I thought that you had become the husband of certain goddess. But you've been gone for a year. I've been very busy. I strongly request for a salary increase." William raised his eyebrows. "Why are you complaining about the things that Odom could do in the past? Salary increase? I'll go and ask if anyone else wants to be the deputy city lord." The city of Dawn was not that big back then. Lautner's voice was very soft. He smiled and said, "Let's talk about the salary later. You have to leave the important task of being the deputy city lord to me. If you hand it over to those young people, as your uncle, I'm really worried. But you should know that the 7 continents have started to merge, right?" "Yes, I already knew." William rolled his eyes. He was not the one who begged him to be the deputy city lord, especially when I didn't know about it. You always use the name of the deputy city lord and my uncle to show off to the various forces on the legendary continent. Uncle, you're digging. You're an epic. Do you know how many people would have broken your long ago if it weren't for me? They would have pressed you to the ground and smacked you to death. Moreover, you haven't lost much hair. Why are you complaining to me?" Odom's wavy blonde hair had all gone bald, but he didn't complain. "Oh, that's right. He contributed a lot in the City of Dawn. With my help, he successfully transformed into the king of Lonely Mountain. Now, he is living a blissful life with 3 wives and 4 concubines. Nominally, it is to reproduce the bloodline of Hammer. He is very comfortable." Lautner glanced at William's eyes and sensed a lot of information through an electric current. He immediately said with a serious expression, "But you don't know that there has been a huge change in the nearby seas. Many fishermen can't catch any fish now. Because of the displacement of the continents, many fishing boats have had accidents. If not for the fact that the City of Dawn has many sea patrols, there would have been a lot of losses. If this continues, this year's fish income will decrease by at least 8 times. But that's not the most important thing. In the process of moving the continent, we seem to have passed by some special places. Right now, the western coastal area has already been attacked by the sea beast tide. It's estimated that it's not far from us." William frowned. "Are you saying that the shipyard might be attacked by sea beasts?" "That's right, but we can't move the shipyard inland, right? That would be too troublesome." "Simple." William stretched out a finger and shook it. "Then during this period of time, prohibit the commoners from fishing in the sea. Tie all the warships together with magic iron chains to form a huge warship ring formation. Then, let the mages enchant them. All the sea legions will be trained on the ships. If there is a beast tide, make sure they don't return. At the same time, increase the stock of magical beast meat." Lana was a little confused. One awesome idea. Not only would this allow the legions to adapt to life at sea, but it would also prevent the attacks of the beast tide. But there seemed to be a big problem with the fish harvest. Of course, the income from the fish harvest would also affect the income of some fishermen. The City of Dawn was a big business, and the fishermen would not suffer too much loss. In addition, with William's God of Looks endowment, the commoners in the city would not be in a mess. But Lautner did not know that William had already thought of this problem. But he did not expect the beast tide to appear so early. After all, in his previous life, he had not experienced this version update. All he knew was the information he had found in the library. To the coastal forces, a normal beast tide was a small problem. As for the sea beasts, even if they were magical beasts, they were not naturally adept at living on land. Hence, their movement and attack power would be greatly reduced. But the most frightening thing was that when they passed through the deep sea, they would attract the appearance of the super sea beasts. For example, if the colossal beasts that were thousands, or even tens of thousands of meters in length appeared, it would be a disaster for most forces. Even if they were all in the legendary realm, ordinary professionals would not be able to defeat them. That was because it was impossible to imagine how much HP those guys had. Hundreds of millions. It was no longer a dream. It was no longer a dream to count their blood by the tons. Other than that, there were the restless sea tribes. If William did not remember wrongly, 3 months later, the coastal areas of the legendary continent would welcome the first large-scale beast tide riot. The instigators behind this riot were the deep sea tribes, one of the 7 major sea tribes. They were a group of intelligent races that lived in the depths of the trenches. According to the ancient legends, they were originally humanoid creatures. In fact, they were one of the species on the gods' continent. But because of the war, they migrated to the sea. But at that time, there were already 6 sea tribes in the sea, and the good spots were basically occupied by them. In addition, these sea tribes suppressed outsiders, causing the deep sea tribes to gradually migrate to the depths of the endless sea. Finally, they became the deep sea tribes. The deep sea tribes looked very ugly. Their skin was black, and their bodies were thin and weak. Their average height was only about 1.6 meters. But they were extremely explosive, and their bloodline talents were also not bad. The only problem was that they looked too ugly. All of them had sharp teeth and a pair of red eyes. They liked to use weapons made of fish bones and metal. Their movements in the sea were extremely fast. Their mounts were usually hairy crabs, large lobsters, and other strange shapes. They belonged to the 7 Seas Kingdoms race that was the most difficult to get along with. If a ship sailed on the sea and passed by the 7 Seas Kingdoms territory, there was actually not much to worry about. At most, they would have to waste some money or local product from the continent. If they encountered the mermaid tribe that was easier to get along with, this group of cute 3-meter-tall sisters could even be friendly and escort them out of the sea area. But if they encountered the deep sea tribes, even if they gave away all the goods on the ship, they would still die. But the power of the deep sea tribes was almost spread across most of the trenches of the endless sea. It was not easy to encounter them. They had long adapted to the dark deep sea world. Other than stormy weather, it was very rare to encounter them. But in the endless sea, there were many more storms than sunny weather. Many merchant ships that traveled long distances were often equipped with extremely strong firepower. Otherwise, they would form an alliance with other sea tribes and take a detour. Actually, this was not a big deal. The most powerful ability of the deep sea tribes was their ability to communicate with the giant deep sea beasts. They controlled many sea monsters, and the number was simply unimaginable. Among them, there was no lack of sage-level sea monsters. This was also one of the reasons why the deep sea tribes dared to attack the coastal areas of the legendary continent. William thought for a while and waved his hand to send Lautner away. He wanted to find out why the deep sea tribes would attack the coastal areas. After all, ancient rumors are more fake. Even if they were one of the races on the continent, it has been too long since they were chased into the sea. Could it be that they still bear a grudge? Because of this matter, they launched an attack? William raised his eyebrows. He had a feeling that this matter was not that simple. In particular, not only did the deep sea tribes disappear once during the version update, but they also frequently appeared in version 5.0. When the 7 continents were busy with the sea wars, they often appeared to plunder the fruits of the plunder. They even deliberately destroyed other fleets, causing hostility and war between both sides. Oh yes, the most easily awakened endowments for them are water and darkness. William suddenly thought of something. Darkness. Could it be that this group of fellows have already surrendered to the Dark World? That's possible. When they left the Gods' continent, the orcs had not surrendered to the Dark World yet. If they were chased out, the degree of tragedy would probably be even more tragic than the orcs. In addition, the sea tribes also bullied them. This group of fellows lived in the dark deep sea. Needless to say, they have a lot of resentment. Perhaps they have really surrendered to the Dark World. William used his fist to hit his palm. That's more or less it. The deep sea tribes are fighting everywhere, and they do not give in to anyone. They are just like mercenary forces, but they do not reap any benefits. If you want to say that they are slutty, of course they are. But their greatest benefit is the promise given by the Dark World. It's also possible that the deep sea tribes were chased out of the Gods' continent because they had surrendered to the Dark World. William believed that his guess was correct. But since he had already made up his mind, and both parties were enemies, there were many things that could be done. William decided to ask Lancelot first. Perhaps the Temple of Light had records of the deep sea tribes. Ever since the Supreme Pontiff of Light had become a supreme sage, the Temple of Light had become one of the top forces in the gods' continent. If there was anything that William did not understand, he would definitely consult Lancelot in the library. Then let's talk to the Temple of Light first. I can't handle the matters of the deep sea tribes alone. I can only be in charge of the coastal territories of the City of Dawn. William took out a magic transmission scroll and sent a message to Blood Armor 3. She was the lady that he had met and entered the Abyss world with. William did not know if he could contact her, but Blood Armor 3 had been in the legendary continent when she was still a Grandmaster. This meant that her living area and mission area were almost in the legendary continent. It was very coincidental. Blood Armor 3 was not far from William. She seemed to be in the southern region. She quickly replied. William teased her and sent a voice message. Where's Sister Blood Armor 3? Do you have an appointment today? 10 seconds later, Blood Armor 3 calmly replied. Yes. By the way, thank you for killing Ike, that time-type assassin. I'm now Purple Armor 2. Gosh, William inhaled a breath of cold air. Was Lady Leong that powerful? Ordinary people would not be able to fight against the time assassin. But the higher her level, the better. William asked again, Are you coming to the City of Dawn now? Okay, wait for me at home. After finishing his sentence, William swallowed his saliva. The car was traveling at high speed. They had not even gotten to know each other, and she was already coming to his house. But then again, his house was a landmark in the City of Dawn. There was no doubt that outsiders would not know where he was staying. William had just arrived home. He heard the sound of the door being pushed open. When William turned around, he didn't see Blood Armor 3. Instead, he saw an angry Annie. He hurriedly stroked the little princess's head and said, I just came back. I didn't have a chance to see you. Hey, you've stepped into the legendary realm while I was gone? Impressive, impressive. Chapter 589. After William saw Annie, he started to compliment her as if they were free. He kept saying things like, You've gotten prettier recently. You've reached a higher realm. You're especially good-looking today. William lost count of how many times he said such things. But Annie, who was wearing a princess dress, only hugged herself angrily. She glared at William coldly and did not say a word. William felt a little awkward. He had just returned home, and before he could meet Annie, she had chased him all the way to his house. Oh, later on, Blood Armor 3, Miss Purple Armor 2, would come over. Damn, if we meet, it'll definitely be a massacre. William hurriedly put his arm around Annie's shoulder. Look, I've just returned home, and I don't have any fruits that you like. Let's go to your house, and I'll tell you what I've experienced this year. Let me tell you, I went to the underworld god's small world. It was very interesting. Hee, you can tell me here. After you leave, there are maids who will tidy up your room. If you want fruits and snacks, you could just ask them outside. Annie slapped his big pig trotters away and continued saying, Or is there something shameful in your room? No. William did not know when Purple Armor 2 would come, so he hurriedly pushed Annie away. If the little princess saw them, he would not be able to explain himself. It was like a boyfriend returning home from a business trip. Instead of informing his girlfriend, he went to have a heart-to-heart talk with his childhood sweetheart next door. Wasn't he asking for trouble? Oh, many people did not have childhood sweethearts. Even if they had childhood sweethearts, they would not be able to stop it. It was uncomfortable. But the little princess squinted her eyes again and said, Why are you pushing me away? Didn't you send me a telepathic message asking me to meet you at your house? William was dumbfounded. His head was full of question marks. Blood Armor 3. Annie tilted her head and pressed it hard on his head. Mississippi, the little princess continued pressing on his head. Are you free? Do you want to meet me? Heh. Man, you didn't expect your Blood Armor 3rd sister to be this princess, right? Are you disappointed? Isn't it exciting anymore? I didn't expect it. Now that His Royal Highness is rich and powerful, he's already dating girls outside? Do you really think you can do whatever you want just because you're handsome? Are you surprised that you didn't recognize me when we met before? Annie pushed his head back again. I've displayed super combat strength since a long time ago, right? During the first Darkness invasion, it was also the only time I fought openly. Have you forgotten? Back then, I killed more demons of the same rank than you, right? My combat power was also stronger than yours, right? I seem to have saved you once. Do you still remember? By the way, you were flirting with that little angel Shein at that time. You didn't notice at all, did you? How do you think I usually train? Is it all from eating? Annie pressed his forehead and said angrily, "Do you think I'm a foodie? Why do I often leave the City of Dawn? I said that I'm going back to visit my family, but every time I leave, I'll be gone for a few months. Aren't you curious? Oh, I understand. Today, you have Moses, tomorrow, little Shein, the day after tomorrow, the little witch, and the day after that, you have big-breasted Sia. You even have a group of long-legged ladies as your bodyguards. Have you forgotten about me? Think about it. Besides my grandfather, I don't have any family members. He's just an old sage. Does he need me to take care of him?" Camelot was speechless. Grandfather's heart is in pain. "Don't you know how to ask me where I've been?" Annie used her small hand to push William against the wall. Then she stopped angrily. William did not know what to do. He swallowed his saliva and stood upright at the corner of the wall. That's right. Annie was often not in the City of Dawn, and William did not ask too many questions. He felt that he should give his girlfriend some freedom. But who knew that she was a member of the Godslayer Temple? But then again, why was Annie a member of the Godslayer Temple? The little princess saw William's puzzled expression. She sat on the chair and snorted. "My grandfather was a sage of the Godslayer Temple at the end of the Second Era. Why do you think I'm a member of the Godslayer Temple?" "What?" William was bewildered. Why did they join forces to fight against the City of Dawn? But Annie glanced at him in disdain and said, "I know that my uncle is a peak sage. I also know that you have a god's avatar. Even if the Godslayer Temple supports the 3 mercenary teams, can they defeat the City of Dawn? If the sages don't attack, can they force you to use all your trump cards? It's all because of you, heartless be **starred. You took the opportunity to annex them. Think about it. The Godslayer Temple invested so many resources and equipment. Didn't they all end up in your hands? Why did the Godslayer Temple give them such a windfall? Apart from that Paul Bane, didn't you also recruit the other 2 legendary masters? Have you never thought about why the murdering God Palace would make such a wrong decision? If my grandfather didn't provide them with wrong information, how could such an accident happen?" Annie had an expression of exasperation. Right now, she really wanted to beat the man in front of her up. All right, if not for the fact that she could not defeat him, she would have beaten him up. When she could defeat him, she regretted not beating him up. This Ned man was too good-looking. Even if I beat him up, it would hurt my heart. The prince was dumbfounded, but now he understood a lot. He did not understand why the Godslayer Temple was so powerful. Why did Sage S3 not attack? He thought that only by summoning Odin's avatar would they be able to end the battle. In the end, the Godslayer Temple only sent a forbidden skill master to fight with him, and the battle ended mysteriously. In one sentence. At that time, not only was he puzzled, but all the spectators were also puzzled. In particular, the final battle had come too quickly. This was a wrong decision. But now, it seemed that Camelot had ordered them to launch the final attack. Actually, if they had split up to attack the player's city, the City of Dawn would not have been able to defend. Everything indicated that there was a big problem with that battle. But if outsiders did not know the truth, they would not be able to see many problems. Damn, I thought the Godslayer Temple was sincere in inviting me to join them. An invitation letter in Paul Bane's hands. Gosh, are they plotting against me? William inhaled a cold breath. He did not expect that the battle between the City of Dawn and the legendary mercenary team was completely controlled by Camelot. No wonder the legendary mercenary team lost so badly. Their backer, Sage S3, is my girlfriend's grandfather. Mother of **Cur. You guys have lost from the start. Little Paul, you're so pitiful. It can even be said that if the 3 big mercenary teams did not join forces under the encouragement of the Godslayer Temple, they would still be under the control of the human empires. Otherwise, I would not have dared to openly merge with them. the City of Dawn would not have been able to stabilize its position as a top power. The prince completely understood, but understanding the truth was secondary. He had not coaxed the little princess yet. William could only stretch out his hands to massage her shoulders and keep smiling. He was not trying to suck up to her. If someone said that he was all right, he would suck up to her for the rest of his life. She was such a cute, good-looking, kind, and beautiful little princess. If he did not suck up to her, he would not be a real man. William coaxed her from noon until dinner time. Annie, who was wearing a princess dress, was finally amused by William's joke. The prince heaved a sigh of relief. He could not help but shake off the sweat on his forehead. To be honest, with his current realm, even if he fought with a legendary expert for 3 days, he might not even break a sweat. "Little Annie, what are you eating tonight?" "Nonsense. I'm full from anger." The little princess tilted her head and looked at the moon outside. The prince laughed mischievously. "Then I won't eat." "Does the princess like the moon?" "Oh, can you pluck it for me?" The corners of William's mouth twitched. The moon was too big, and he could not do anything about it. But it was not impossible to pluck the rocks off the moon. But an idea flashed in his mind. He carried Annie in his arms. Ignoring her screams, he soared into the sky and transformed into a beam of light as he flew towards the blue moon above his head. The little princess gradually calmed down and quietly lay in his arms. Her hands were tightly wrapped around William's neck. She was not afraid of falling, but she liked this feeling. She even hoped that she could do this for the rest of her life. After some time, the two of them got closer and closer to the moon. Annie raised her head and looked at the handsome face of the man in front of her. She could not help but ask charmingly, "What are you doing? Do you really want to pluck the moon?" "There are blue moon people on the blue moon. If we go there directly, we will definitely attract their attention. Let's just watch from here." "No, since the princess wants the moon, I'll bring you there." William rejected her domineeringly. His speed became faster and faster, and sonic booms sounded continuously. He activated his battle energy shield and exploded at several times the speed of sound. Very soon, the two of them left the gods' continent and arrived outside the atmosphere. It was the first time that Annie had flown to such a high altitude. She lowered her head to look at the scenery beneath her feet. She smiled and shook William's shoulder. "Look, it's so beautiful below. I can see 7 continents. It's beautiful. I'll bring you here every night." William rubbed his forehead against the little princess's face lovingly as he continued flying towards the blue moon. A full 3 hours passed. The two of them finally neared the blue moon's atmosphere. When they entered, a blue world appeared in front of them. Annie covered her small mouth and looked at the scene in front of her in surprise. It was a blue land, sea, flowers, and trees. The scenery was completely different from the gods' continent. Meanwhile, the son of the blue moon led hundreds of guards to welcome them. They bowed in unison. The blue moon people welcomed the arrival of the moonlight elves princess. Annie glanced at William and then at the son of the blue moon, whom she had met before. The corners of her mouth curled up as she said, "At ease." Subsequently, a voice was transmitted to William's ears. "Brother, I've given you face. I won't hold it against you for plucking my clothes. Don't worry, it's just money. I can get as much as you want." That's easy." The son of the blue moon finished transmitting his voice. He smiled and said, "The blue moon is the princess's home in the sky. You can go wherever you want." Chapter 590. A day trip to the blue moon cost only 8 million gold coins. Under the guidance of the son of the blue moon, Blue Sea, William brought the little princess to visit many beautiful places. The next day, the prince, who had spent a small fortune, finally returned to the City of Dawn with Annie. The prince looked at the happy little princess and could not help but ask, "Annie, what's the attitude of the Godslayer Temple towards the gods?" The little princess raised her eyebrows. When she saw William's worried expression, she rolled her eyes and said, "The members of the Godslayer Temple are very complicated. Most of them hide their identities. Especially after the large-scale reincarnation of the gods, the Godslayer Temple realized that they no longer practice godhood. Hence, internal strife has already occurred. Now, the attitude of the Godslayer Temple towards the gods is not as hateful as before. Now, the Saints of the Godslayer Temple are divided into two factions. One faction wants to kill all the gods regardless of what they are. The other faction wants to form a friendship with the reincarnated gods and fight against the gods who want to enslave thousands of living beings. They are referring to the gods who have never given up on godhood and are hiding in the divine realm. Otherwise, with so many reincarnated gods on the gods continent and the Godslayer Temple's method of discovering them, the number of gods killed by the Godslayer Temple would not be so few. William was slightly stunned. He did not expect the internal composition of the Godslayer Temple to be so complicated. However, in his previous life, no players had joined the Godslayer Temple. The information on the forum was very scarce, so he did not know much about it. But according to the current power of the Godslayer Temple, many of them were epic and legendary reincarnated gods. If they were discovered in advance, and he did not join any forces, they would not have survived until now. But this way, he did not have to worry too much about Moses' safety. It was not impossible for the City of Dawn and the Godslayer Temple to do some shady business. Annie continued. For example, my grandfather, Camelot, is one of the leaders of the faction that opposes killing all the gods. Among them, Sacred Armor 1, 4, and 5 are staunch believers of the Godslayer Temple. As for Sacred Armor 2, 3, and 6, they're the factions that befriend the gods. My grandfather, Camelot, was one of the Scarab. He actually protected many reincarnated deities in the legendary continent to prevent them from being assassinated by the killers of the godly, murdering temple. One of them was your little Murphy. Annie pouted and snorted. Then, the little princess continued. Otherwise, as the reincarnation of the goddess of magic, even if Moses really hides her identity well, it is not like no one knows about the grudge between her and the martial sage. As long as we use the martial sage, we will be able to find out Moses' true identity. However, she was never assassinated by the God-slaying temple. This has a lot to do with my grandfather guarding the legendary continent. For example, the reincarnation of the thunder god, Thor Raiden, he was once assassinated by the God-slaying temple, but only a few times, and they were all assassins of the same rank. The other higher-rank professions were basically blocked by my grandfather. When William heard this, he could not help but gasp. Good Lord, he never thought that there would be so many things going on in Murdering God Palace. William knew that Camelot was powerful and could beat up Cronus, who was also a sage, Lord of Darkness. Ahem. Actually, William had some suspicions. He thought that Cronus was too embarrassed to retaliate. However, he did not know that this old fellow had such a hidden identity and had done so many things in the dark. Indeed, professionals who had been in the sage state for a long time had a broader perspective. They were not limited to their race and their own power. Instead, they had their sights set on the future of the gods' continent. After hesitating for a while, William said in a low voice, "If the City of Dawn cooperates with the God-slaying temple, it doesn't seem to have much of an impact, right?" Annie nodded. At least in the legendary continent, there definitely won't be a problem. Ever since my grandfather became Sacred Armor 3, he has been guarding the legendary continent for tens of thousands of years on behalf of the God-slaying temple. He still has a lot of power in the God-slaying temple. When he spoke about cooperating with you, it was actually to show the God-slaying temple. Now, if you really want to cooperate with the God-slaying temple, you can prevent my grandfather from being punished because of the wrong information. Punishment? Your grandfather is already a sage expert. Even if he caused the deaths of many legendary professionals and wasted some resources because of the legendary mercenary team, the God-slaying temple is a powerful organization. Can they really punish him? The prince was puzzled. They were the sages. They were the ones who set the rules of this world. Even the emperor of the human empires would only give a verbal warning to the sages who had committed mistakes. However, the little princess shook her head. It's not as simple as you think. The rules of the God-slaying temple are very strict. If you do something wrong, you will be punished. However, this is also the main reason why the God-slaying temple has been able to survive for so long. Although the punishment for the sage experts is not too severe, it will ultimately make the factions that are on good terms with the gods lose face. especially the creator of the god-slaying temple, Sacred Armor 1. My grandfather said that this antique has been at the peak of the Sage for a long time. No one knows his identity, background, and hidden forces. However, there is one thing that can be proven. Sacred Armor 2, who is also at the peak of the Sage state, thinks that he is no match for the creator. He even said that he is only half a step away from becoming a supreme sage. If he really reaches this step, the factions that are on good terms with the gods in the god-slaying temple will be completely suppressed. The so-called factions will also cease to exist in name. Is that so? William raised his eyebrows. He was not too worried that the creator would reach a higher realm in a short period of time, because according to the memories of his previous life, he had not reached that stage yet. In particular, the act-tough Emperor of Light was the leader of the gods' continent. As an existence who had reached the supreme sage state at the end of the Third Era, even if Sacred Armor 1 improved further, the Light Pope would not allow him to do as he pleased. However, he had never expected that the god-slaying temple would have two peak sages. As for Sacred Armor 3, even if Camelot's true strength was not at the peak of the sage state, he was probably at the peak of the sage state. TSK, they're very strong. I just don't know their true identities. William knew many famous peak sages. The unparalleled battle sage of the war-ending empire, one of the 12 sages of the humans in the Second Era. The religious lord of the Sunset Sage Temple, Death Sunday. The super leader of the Rune continent, an expert who had existed since the beginning of the Second Era. After the 9 continents were divided, the Rune continent was named after him. He was the legendary Rune Mage, the fearsome man of the Middle Continent, a shield warrior and a grandmaster of combat expert, Qualls. There were many peak sages, and they were especially famous in the later stages of the game. Each of them was the leader of a continent, and William had a fresh memory of them. Besides them, the Serafkin and elves also had some peak sages. However, there were too many of them. William did not know which person was the true identity of Sacred Armor, one of the god-slaying temple. Of course, the others were just impressive, but the Light Pope was the real deal. He had only said that all the saints present were trash, and the other saints had already fallen silent. Subsequently, with Annie's help, William went to the new Moonlight Forest and met Camelot. This was the first time he had met a sage expert since his rebirth. The second time they met was on the Moonlight Tree that was more than 3,000 meters high. The great elder of the Moonlight Elves, Sacred Armor 3 of the god-slaying temple, still looked ordinary. He had a head of shiny silver hair that draped over his shoulders. He did not look old, but his eyes gave off the feeling that he had seen through everything in the world. When Camelot noticed that William had come alone, he pointed at a chair beside him. William did not stand on ceremony. He bowed and sat down. It's the second time we've met. You used to be a small lord, but now you're the lord of the City of Dawn. You're even famous in other continents. Camelot's tone was as friendly as ever. He even personally poured a cup of freshly brewed tea for William. William extended both hands to receive the teacup. He smiled and said, "Great elder, you must be joking. I'm far inferior to you. You're like a sky full of stars trying to compete with the sun and moon." "Oh, do you really think that I don't know that those stars are bigger than the sun?" Camelot teased. William glanced outside and started to put on an act. Then the great elder of the Moonlight Tree said, "Actually, you're very good. Although we both have royal elven bloodlines, because of your half-elven bloodline, the treatment we receive is too different. I have countless training resources, while you have to work your way up. Although the 3 elven tribes have given you some support, most of them are small investments. There are no real benefits." William wanted to decline modestly. Camelot shook his head and said, "Annie said that you want to form an alliance with the god-slaying temple. It's not an alliance. It's a collaboration." "Huh? Are you still so afraid of the god-slaying temple?" William pursed his lips. "You should know what the god-slaying temple is like. If Sacred Armor 3 reaches a higher realm, what's the use of being on good terms with the gods? If I'm too involved with you, I won't have a good time. All right, it's not an alliance. It's a collaboration for the sake of benefits. The City of Dawn doesn't want to see the rise of the magic sanctuary, and the god-slaying temple doesn't want to see the Church of Magic behind it grow stronger. Camelot said in a deep voice, but since it's a collaboration, I'll say it first. In such a large-scale war, the god-slaying temple won't interfere. But if they do, they will kill everyone. I can't make any mistakes now. If not, the spokesperson of the god-slaying temple in the legendary continent will be replaced. How do you want to collaborate? Provide manpower? Provide money? Or provide manpower? William raised his eyebrows. The City of Dawn will provide manpower, but only half of the legendary professionals of the Magic Sanctuary will be in charge. Any more would be a waste of our trump card. However, if you pay a high enough price, I can take care of all the legendary professionals, provided that you don't create trouble for Moses. Forget it. Don't let her participate. I'll find someone to deal with the remaining half. Camelot shook his head. What about the Grand Mage Saint? William suddenly asked. Camelot calmly took a sip of tea. It's not wise to start a holy war. Even if it's against an old enemy of the god-slaying temple, it's easy to teach him a lesson. Boss, please have some tea. William immediately bowed to serve the tea. He had to admit that Camelot was more powerful than him. Even his avatar, Odin, did not dare to be so arrogant. Chapter 591. When Camelot said that he was going to teach the Warlock Saint a lesson, he was not bluffing. The difference of one word was like the difference between heaven and earth. Of course, William believed that when his father taught him a lesson, it would be the same. Hence, there was nothing to be afraid of. After William and Camelot discussed the basic matters of their cooperation, he received an SS-level super main storyline mission. He would enjoy all the experience points. If he could complete the mission 100%, he would receive 5 billion experience points. William was already at level 230. After obtaining the experience points, he estimated that he could level up by another 10 levels. There was a total of 90 levels between the legendary and sages. To many players, this was an insurmountable amount of experience points. In his previous life, before he died of exhaustion, no one had attained the sage state. But to William, who could earn money and enter the VIP leveling room, the speed of leveling up was extremely fast. He even wanted to complete as many missions as possible within the next 10 years and attain the sage state. If he did not succeed, after the version update, when a large number of young lambs arrived, he would still be able to reach the sage state. Of course, it's best to attain the sage state in advance. Then, I can use the experience points of the players to advance further. I won't be a weakling among the sages. William sighed. Camelot did not want to start the Holy War in advance. But the Fourth Era had begun, and the Holy War in version 5.0 was about to begin. Camelot had no choice but to participate. The war between the City of Dawn and the Magic Sanctuary would not start easily. There were many things to prepare. If they wanted to start the war, it would take a few months. More importantly, the Warlock Saint had not arrived at the legendary continent. He seemed to be making some preparations. William finally found out the name of the newly advanced Warlock Saint. Tom Mater was an expert in black witchcraft. His nickname was Necromancer. William was stunned. Tom Mater was not very famous in his previous life. But because of his name, he was jokingly called Voldemort by the majority of the players. So it's you, the traitor. The Church of Magic has been tricked. The corners of William's mouth twitched. The doctrine of the Church of Magic was to have absolute faith in the Lord of Magic. The words of the Lord of Magic were the truth. However, Tom Mater was indeed a lackey of the God of Darkness. He vaguely remembered that this necromancer had used his own means to send the Dark Army directly to the headquarters of the Church of Magic. Not only did he cause countless casualties, but he also sacrificed 2 saints to the God of Darkness. In the end, even though many people from the Church of Magic managed to survive, their status in Jianghu plummeted. They were no longer a match for the God-slaying temple. They even disappeared for a long time, and no one could hear about them anymore. From this, it could be seen that the relationship between the Master of Magic and the God of Darkness wasn't very good. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been so conniving. There seems to be something we can do. While William was deep in thought, Lancelot's telepathic message caught his attention. In a city in the Red Fire Kingdom of the southern region, a bard spoke with fervor and assurance. Everyone says that the Lord of the City of Dawn is the most handsome man in the gods' continent. He is handsome and suave. Everyone loves him, and flowers bloom when they see him. He is the idol of thousands of noble ladies and the object of admiration of countless female professionals. Oh yes, I have more than 100 portraits of the Lord of the City of Dawn. Although they don't look like him, they are worth 3 silver coins each. You won't lose out if you buy them. Old Nick, do you dare to change the opening? Besides, the tavern is full of old men. Who would buy his portrait? You've been paid, haven't you? A burly man grew impatient. He stood up abruptly and slammed the table, spilling the wine on the floor. The bar named Old Nick was also indignant. He stood up proudly and said, "So what? I received money. If you don't like it, go and reason with the City of Dawn." Fuck. The man's mouth twitched, and he sat down. There were too few entertainment activities in the pub. The bard was in high demand. Even if many stories have been told 1,800 times, many people would still listen with great interest. The bard waved the portrait in his hand. Seeing that no one wanted to buy it, he grinned and said, "Forget it. Today, I'll tell you a new story. It's about the adventures of the Lord of the City of Dawn and the Son of Light, Lancelot." "Really?" "Yes. It's a pity that I'm a little thirsty and hungry. I don't have the energy to tell the story. Boss, serve him wine and food. If he can't finish his story, let him walk out with his butt covered." Someone shouted impatiently. Just as the bard was swindling food and making up stories, a voice suddenly rang out. No one knew that the protagonists of the story were drinking in a corner of the pub. Both Lancelot and William used magic scrolls, so they looked ordinary, and their auras were very ordinary beginner professionals. When the former heard that the Lord of the City of Dawn had repeatedly rescued the Son of Light from danger, he couldn't help but frown and glance at William. Did the bard really receive money? William widened his eyes and looked at the bard. How is that possible? The City of Dawn is a big business, but you have to provide evidence for your words. Otherwise, I'll sue the Pope of Light for slander. Lancelot pursed his lips and gulped down a mouthful of sweet wine. He then said solemnly, "His Holiness the Pope said that the third darkness invasion will happen in 10 years. However, it does not mean that the Dark World will stop during this period of time. They will send batches of vanguard troops in an attempt to spread fear in the God's continent. They will make the people believe in the darkness. There are some legendary devils among them." "Is that all?" William looked at him in surprise. "Can't you just finish your story through the magic scroll? Why must you meet me? Is it because you haven't seen my handsome face for a long time that you suddenly miss me?" Lancelot spat on the ground. After hesitating for a while, he suddenly said, "Give me an engraved crystal, the kind that has your face." William felt a chill down his spine. As he retreated, he almost broke through the walls of the tavern. The Viscount of Light hurriedly explained with a nervous expression, "This is not a serious matter, and I don't want to use it. Look, I'm just asking for one. You know that there are many female professionals in the Temple of Light. They also know that we have a good relationship. This is what they want. They have begged me many times, but I haven't agreed. Some time ago, a female temple knight's legs were chopped off by a devil, and she was unable to recover. She cried and begged me to get an engraved crystal of you. She said that she could fall asleep just by looking at you. Even if she lost her legs, as long as she saw you, she would forget all her fears." After he finished speaking, as the Viscount of Light of the Temple of Light, his expression turned ugly. He found it hard to believe. He was the son of the Temple of Light. But these fellows were sucking up to the Lord of the City of Dawn? Gosh, what did they think of him? Wasn't he supposed to be their idol? What did it have to do with the Lord of the City of Dawn, who relied on his looks? William was bewildered. He waved his hand and rubbed his hair. He muttered to himself, "Wait a minute. You want an engraved crystal of my appearance? Are you asking for it for someone else? Or for them?" 3 seconds later, William slammed a space ring on the table. "Take it. There are 10,000 engraved crystals inside. You can give them to the ladies of the Temple of Light. Each engraved crystal has a different record of me. I guarantee that I'll be handsome from 720 degrees. Yes, it's free. Lancelot glanced at the engraved crystals in the space ring. He could not help but frown. Did William prepare for this? Or did he plan to sell his life videos? This D*MN profiteer, despicable foreigner. He must have planned to use his face to seduce the female professionals of the Temple of Light, right? I definitely can't give him all. Lancelot had already made up his mind. He wanted to keep, well, at least half of it. William did not know what Lancelot was thinking. He asked the boss for some wine and said, "What's the important matter you're talking about?" "An outpost in the dark world. If they dare to come, we will dare to fight back." The Pope intends to build outposts in the dark world. He has already negotiated with many forces from the 7 continents. Money. With money, everything is not a problem. William's eyes lit up. The gods' continents had not attacked indiscriminately. The 7 continents had already built outposts in the dark world. But the cost of building these outposts was far beyond the imagination of ordinary people. Not to mention other things. The cost of building each outpost was equivalent to the cost of the elves attacking the Orc Empire. It was not that the City of Dawn could not contribute, but the Dawn Army was a mercenary force. It was not a problem for William to help. As long as they had enough money, everything was not a problem. Lancelot looked at William and could not help but sigh. This concerns the future of the gods' continents. Brother, let's not talk about righteousness. It's not that I'm greedy for money. I just can't afford to fight. William could only shrug his shoulders. The City of Dawn is only a neutral camp. It does not occupy a large territory and does not have many resources. We are not the human empires. They seem to have a strong military force, but they are all mercenaries. Fighting a war requires money. If we really help you fight for free, the City of Dawn will collapse in less than a year. As long as you build an outpost, there will be many resources for you to obtain in the dark world. Don't talk nonsense. As long as we build an outpost, the resources in the dark world will depend on our capabilities. Lancelot's mouth twitched. Then he saw William's pitiful expression. Instantly, the Viscount of Light's heart softened. He waved his hand and said, all right. We'll hire the Dawn Army at the same price. But don't think about earning money. That's the salary for the mercenaries. All right, let's wait and see. The warriors of the Dawn Army can take on 2 opponents at once. When will we start fighting? Which outpost will the City of Dawn be in charge of? What other forces will join this outpost? Lancelot smiled. The Pope will take the lead. All the human empires, elves, Serafkin, and dwarfs will join the alliance. No matter how the gods' continents fight, they will have to cooperate in attacking the dark world and building an outpost. The Pope said this himself. As for the outpost that the City of Dawn will be in charge of, we don't know yet. Just wait for the news. But it will take at least a year to decide. William's eyes lit up. The Pope of Light had become a transcendent sage much earlier than in his previous life. Now, he had a lot to say. In William's previous life, only the Temple of Light, some human empires in the 7 continents, and some light camps participated in the outpost of the Dark World. But this time, it was much more powerful than in his previous life. His power had increased tremendously. It's even possible that the Pope of Light will say those pretentious words in advance. Chapter 592. 2 friends who had been friends for more than 10 years were chatting happily in the tavern. The bard's story was fascinating. Many of them wished they could become the hero and uphold justice in the city that had fallen into the abyss. There were very few professionals in the tavern. Even if there were, most of them were beginner-level or middle-level adventurers. Otherwise, they would be mercenaries, but who did not have delusions. Bang! The door was pushed open. The torrential rain outside was blown into the tavern by the strong wind. Someone looked at the newcomer with displeasure. A pretty young girl knelt on the ground with tears all over her face. She kept wiping her tears and said, please save my family. I went home to buy groceries and saw my parents being captured by a devil. Please. A brawny man with a scar on his face stood up. Perhaps the bard's rambling had given him a buff. He said righteously, young lady, speak slowly, or bring us to your house to take a look. At least we can understand the situation. Hey, don't bring us. We didn't say we would go. Sure. Young lady, What do you intend to use as a reward? A beginner-level professional revealed a perverted smile. Young Lady Liang retreated 2 steps in fear. She was carried to the ground by the door sill. The little girl, who had fallen into the muddy water, started wailing loudly. Many of the men in the tavern were embarrassed. The most perverted guy was punched and sent flying. He hit the wall and caused a lot of dust to fall into the wine glasses. But after this brief conflict, many people calmed down. They had no intention of helping the little girl up. They also had no intention of talking to her. Perhaps they thought that by not committing crimes and selling off the helpless little girl, they were already being righteous. Most of the time, people were really realistic and helpless. William glanced at Lancelot, who stood up expressionlessly. He strode forward and pushed away the people in front of him. The magic scrolls fell off, and a dazzling holy armor appeared in front of everyone. The surging and powerful aura made it hard for them to breathe. There was no temple of light in this small town. They had never seen such a scene before. They could recognize the armor worn by the man in front of them. The shield and sword symbol indicated that he was a temple knight. Of course, there were many levels of temple knights. They had no idea that the person in front of them was Lancelot, the legendary son of light. Lancelot walked over and helped little girl Yang up. He said a few comforting words and cast a light buff on her. Then, he turned around and said, "What are you looking at? Carry her. I'm going to deal with that guy now. Otherwise, it might be too late if we delay any longer." William was stunned. He could only stand up helplessly. Such dark incidents happen hundreds or even thousands of times in the legendary continent every day. Originally, he could not be bothered. Otherwise, he would hide in the City of Dawn. Out of sight, out of mind. After all, there was no possibility of any dark incidents happening in his territory. However, His Royal Highness discovered problem. When a little girl in front of him was possessed by the light buff, there was a hint of discomfort in her eyes. Or perhaps resentment? He furrowed his brows as he stared at this seemingly harmless little girl and chose to use insight. At this moment, the little girl, who was still crying, smiled sinisterly. A huge creature tore the surface of her skin and turned into a 3-meter-tall legendary demon. He was also holding a sharp black weapon in his hand. Accompanied by a sonic boom, he stabbed forward. Bang! Lancelot could feel the murderous intent. Although he had activated his battle energy shield, he was still stabbed in the chest by the black dagger. He spat out a mouthful of fresh blood and flew away like a cannonball. After he smashed some unlucky fellows into minced meat, he continued to destroy several houses before collapsing into ruins. At this moment, the commoners and professionals in the tavern were in a mess. They left through the windows and the back door. All of them were shouting and shouting for the people to disperse. William glanced at Lancelot, who was crawling out of the ruins. He raised his eyebrows at the devil in front of him. "Did the Viscount of Darkness send you here?" The muscular tyrant grinned and sneered. "That's right. The Viscount of Darkness wants me to tell you that the outpost plan of the Supreme Pontiff of Light has already been leaked to us. If you really dare to attack the Dark World, there will be many more dark incidents happening in the God's continent every day." William was dumbfounded. The Viscount of Darkness was a fool. Couldn't he have made preparations in the dark to ambush them? Oh, that was right. The Viscount of Darkness could not be concealed. It did not matter if he did not tell them. But why did the Viscount of Darkness send this legendary fool to the tavern? TSK, he was evil. William was 100% sure that the little b asterisk TCH had been following Lancelot every day. What a pervert. So he asked, "Devil brother, can I ask you a question?" "Go ahead." The arrogant legendary devil had a look of disdain. He did not take William and Lancelot seriously. William organized his thoughts and said in a friendly tone, "Have you offended the Viscount of Darkness before? Or is this how you usually speak to the Viscount of Darkness?" "What? That's how I talk to him. Our fiend race has always been straightforward. Are you not convinced?" William shrugged his shoulders. He suddenly took a step forward, and time seemed to have stopped. At that moment, a substantial aura soared into the sky. The entire tavern, all the houses, stones, and trees within a radius of a few hundred meters floated into the air. Bang! It was a punch that flashed with lightning. The devil's arms, which he used to block the punch, were instantly turned into a pile of flesh. His body flew backward like a meteor, spitting out fresh blood. In the next second, all the inanimate objects fell to the ground, and a large amount of smoke and dust rose. Accompanied by a sonic boom, William appeared thousands of meters in the sky. Once again, he punched downwards. The legendary demon raised the sharp blade in its hand to block, but that seemingly indestructible killer weapon was useless. William's fist was invincible. With a single punch, the dagger broke into pieces. Another punch caused the devil's chest to collapse. His internal organs and bones were crushed into a pile of flesh. The devil crashed to the ground like a meteorite. At the same time, William landed near the devil and punched again. Boom! A ring-shaped shockwave spread in all directions. As for the legendary assassin-type devil, he was half dead after 3 blows. He had lost half of his head. From time to time, he would twitch in the crater. It was as if he was telling others that he was not dead. He could still fight for another day. The prince didn't pay any attention to the fool who was being used by the Viscount of Darkness. He stepped on his chest and glanced at Lancelot, who was flying over, and said, "You can't even take a beating. How could this kind of assassin hurt you?" Lancelot clutched his chest and spat out another mouthful of black blood. He frowned. You know that he's an assassin, so it's normal for him to conceal his aura. But I didn't expect him to use the Black God dagger. It's a weapon blessed by the God of Darkness. It can cause great damage to light element professionals like me. Not only can it not be blocked, but it can also weaken our combat power. Many temple knights of the Temple of Light have fallen to this weapon. This guy looks foolish, but his assassination skills are quite good. He's good as an assassin, but he's not good at direct combat. Oh yes, do you want this guy? If not, I'll take him away. William knew what the dagger was. The God of Darkness could not perform miracles in the God's continent, but he had the ability to do so in the dark world. This guy had also blessed quite a few weapons, turning them into killing weapons against light element professionals. Lancelot was a little unlucky, but this didn't mean that he didn't have the strength to fight. It was just that he hadn't made a move yet, and he was too lazy to use his full strength just now. Lancelot covered his mouth and coughed. Don't kill him. This legendary devil should know a lot of information. I'll take him to the sacred pond for a bath to purify his soul. William finished speaking. The legendary devil under William's feet struggled. The half of his head that was still recovering turned around and looked at William with a yearning gaze. He hoped that his good brother would be decisive. Bath, I'll flirt with you. Don't think that I don't know that the sacred pond is a pond made of holy water. His mother had said that light element professionals were bad people. This guy was not just a bad person. He was a pervert, a lunatic, and a killing maniac. Okay, I'll leave him to you. William kicked the legendary devil in front of Lancelot. Anyway, he had defeated this legendary devil, and he had obtained the experience points. The Viscount of Light was very fast. He took out 5 shining chains and bound the 5 limbs of the legendary devil. Oh, the 5th limb was the neck. After a complicated mark was made, the silly devil was completely blocked. Not only could his injuries not recover, but his eyes could not even blink. He could only be in a painful, half-disabled state. Then, the silly devil was kept in an alternate dimension. Lancelot frowned and said, I'll return to the Temple of Light first. Recently, I've had too many dealings with devils. I don't know when I got a tracking mark. Otherwise, the Viscount of Darkness would not know my whereabouts. Be careful. That guy's always looking for trouble with you. Got it. Don't forget to help me ask for more hiring fees. It's a little disadvantageous for us to do business of equal value. William shouted. Lancelot pretended not to hear him. He quickly transformed into a beam of white light and disappeared into the sky. William did not move. After about 10 minutes, the Viscount of Darkness suddenly walked out of a dense fog. He grinned and said, I'll give you a legendary devil for free. Is that a small gift? Tell me, what's the big gift you want to give us? William had heard the Viscount of Darkness's telepathic message. He wanted to cooperate with him. After considering his own strength, William decided to negotiate with him. At most, he would be tricked and run away. The Viscount of Darkness laughed and said, "Big gift. That's them." At that instant, the stars were moved in the empty space, in the space of a sage position. In this alternate dimension filled with countless corpses and ruins, the black-robed necromancer gazed at him with a smile. Of course, the 28 legendary experts of the magic sanctuary were also among them, who said that he would have to prepare for a few months before heading to the magic sanctuary. Prepare for the City of Dawn? Give William and the god-slaying temple a chance to cooperate? To catch bandits, first capture the ringleader. Tom Mater, liked to catch people off guard and take drastic measures. He liked to bully the weak and fight with numbers. Chapter 593. In the Sage Throne Space. This was a battlefield created by the sages when they fought. It was to prevent their powerful combat power from damaging the gods' continent. However, this space was silent, and there were no signs of life. The geographical environment was like a replica of the gods' continent. It was a combination of the gods' continents. The Sage Throne Space will be the same as one's position when one left. However, there was no sun and moon in the sky. Everything was extremely dark. It was obvious that the Sage Throne Space was closely related to the Abyss world. The Viscount of Darkness did not intend to participate in this attack. He looked deeply at William and laughed. "Necromancer, I've done what I can. I hope you won't forget to agree to my request." Then, countless black runes appeared under the feet of the Viscount of Darkness. The dark altar instantly pulled him away, and he disappeared from this space. Tom Martyr watched the Viscount of Darkness leave. He suddenly turned his head and sneered. "The Viscount of Darkness is really afraid of you. When I asked him to open the door to the dark world, he refused. He was afraid that you would find trouble with him if you survived." William shrugged his shoulders. "He's really a clever little devil. What price did you use to tempt him?" "It's just some benefits. Even if I didn't agree, would he dare to find trouble with me?" The necromancer clapped his hands together. A black pillar of death rose from William's feet and formed a huge cage that trapped him. That was right. A sage had secretly set up a magic formation while he was chatting with William. It had to be said, he was a newbie who had just been promoted to the sage realm. However, he wasn't considered young. Moreover, he had only stepped into the sage realm after so many years. Therefore, his fighting habits hadn't changed at all. His attacks were all sneaky. He didn't have the demeanor of a sage realm expert at all. A martial sage was 10,000 times better than a sage. Just when many legendary experts thought that their old enemy was helpless, William's aura increased. However, the prince's momentum was rising steadily. His whole body was surrounded by plasma, and he tore open the necromancer cage with his bare hands. The so-called death chi did not affect him at all. Shun Tu, Alanok, and the others swallowed hard. They had thought that the Lord of Dawn's combat power would not decrease after being bombarded by the misfortune artifact. However, he had become stronger and stronger. After using a secret technique, he had the combat power of a peak legendary. Tom Mater raised his eyebrows. "Originally, I only wanted to capture you alive so that your stupid father wouldn't come after me. But I gave you face, but you rejected it." "Pa!" A crisp sound rang out. What everyone did not expect was that the black-robed mage, who had been spouting arrogant words earlier, had already turned into a meteor and disappeared into the distance. His body continuously smashed through many mountains, smashing out a crater in the ground before coming to a stop. A lightning-type saint wearing a sealed armor appeared where Tom Mater had been. He did not reveal his face at all. Great Elder Shintu was startled and angry when he saw this person. He said, "The protector of the Lord of Dawn City has already stepped into the Sage Realm." Or was he originally a Sage Realm expert? "Who are you to be so shameless? I don't even have to lift a finger to beat 10 people like you." William looked at the necromancer and sneered. "What are you waiting for? I'll stop this lightning-type saint. You guys seize the opportunity to kill the Lord of Dawn City." The necromancer shouted angrily. Endless black gas surged out of his body, and majestic magic surged like a river. Countless rays of black energy transformed into rays of light that continuously attacked Odin's body. As a warrior, Odin's aura was stronger. The thunder shield on his body was continuous, and it forcefully resisted the black rays of light. He even resisted the impact of the black rays of light and punched at Odin at a speed that was several times faster than the speed of sound. Bang! A black barrier exploded. The ring-shaped shockwave of darkness and thunder swept in all directions. At the same time, mountains were instantly crushed into ashes. The ground within a radius of tens of thousands of meters sank by tens of meters. The power of Sage. It shocked the heavens and the earth and made the gods weep. Without the sage position, the gods' continent would have been destroyed by generations of sages. Tom Mater looked at the lightning type saint not far away. He was shocked and angry. He knew the identity of the person in front of him. He did not know who he was, but he could tell that the person in front of him was a god. A lightning-type god. Has the god already descended to this world? No. Isn't he William's protector? The necromancer's mind was in a mess. Moreover, he recalled a lot of information about the City of Dawn. The hand of the Thunder God can easily tear a barrier set up by a sage. D*MN. Is he really the reincarnation of the Thunder God? Is it possible that after his reincarnation, a lightning-type god has hidden his strength to protect him? The expression in Tom Mater's eyes kept changing. Finally, he could not care less. He waved his hand and took out a magic book that was filled with countless strange runes. At that moment, when the black magic book was opened, it was as if Pandora's box had been opened. Countless undead spirits gushed out of the book of necromancy. In just a few short breaths, they filled the entire sky, making the already dim space of the sage birth extremely frightening. Millions, or even tens of millions of undead spirits did not have a strong aura, but they gathered together to form a colossus that was thousands of meters tall. Its entire body was covered with hands, feet, mouths, and eyes, causing this undead monster that had the aura of a saint to strike fear into the hearts of those who looked at it. Then, the undead monster roared. It was as if an atomic bomb had exploded, and Odin was blown back thousands of meters by the endless shockwaves. Many legendary experts who were fighting with William could not help but gasp. They did not expect the successor of the God's Church to have such tyrannical and invincible means. The necromancer narrowed his eyes. Even if you're a god, what can you do? I'm going to kill a god today. Then, he and the sage undead monster that he had created charged forward at the same time. The sage acted as a meat shield while the necromancer attacked from behind. Both of them were fast. You wouldn't be able to imagine how devastating a monster that was thousands of meters tall would be after it broke through the sound barrier. Everything in its path was reduced to ashes, and even magma seeped out of the accumulated earth. Odin tilted his head. As he watched the undead monster getting closer, he gently grasped the void with his right hand. Countless spatial cracks appeared, as if a distorted spatial door had been opened. Crack! A bolt of lightning that seemed to be solid was grabbed out by him. In the next second, Odin used all the strength in his body to throw the lightning in his hand. Rumble! It was as if a sun had appeared in the endless night sky. The lightning bolt that was a few meters long pierced through space and time. It exploded with sonic booms and tore countless spatial cracks. It hit the chest of the undead monster that could not be blocked, dodged, and moved. Boom! The 3-meter-long lightning bolt exploded. The undead monster kept roaring. But no matter how it struggled, and no matter how angry the necromancer was, he could not stop the undead monster from being melted. Endowment skill. Thunder Spear. It had a 50% chance of destroying all creatures that were restrained by thunder. The undead monster was only one of the necromancer's skills. Odin's skill also consumed a lot of energy, so he could only fight with Tom Mater. The 28 legendary experts of the Magic Sanctuary were like 8 immortals crossing the sea. They used all their powers and tried their best to kill William in the shortest time possible. They wanted to prevent William from using any other tricks. There were 28 legendary experts. In addition, they were experts in magic formations. They had many legendary enchanters and many buffs on their bodies. Even though most of them only had the combat power of the beginning stages of the legendary realm, they could increase their combat power by half a level. In particular, this group of people included professionals of various attributes. There was also a legendary expert in space and time. This combination was enough to kill a martial sage who was not in good condition. Of course, the possibility of a martial sage being their master was very small. But according to normal thinking, even if a reincarnated god was here, he would not be able to withstand such a strong attack. But William had the indestructible Vajra body and Thunder Golden body mutation. He was now at level 230 and had close to 800,000 health points. He could really withstand the attacks. Every time the enemy attacked, as long as it was not too fatal, it would cause his Thunder Heart to beat continuously, providing an indescribable amount of health points. As a result, he was still unharmed even after being beaten up for more than 10 minutes. Only the elemental armor on his body had become tattered. Of course, he could only withstand the attacks. He could also seize some opportunities to counterattack when his opponent revealed an opening. But there was nothing else he could do. There were too many great enchanters, and space professionals were too difficult to deal with. What about time professionals? Sorry. In a situation where there were no taboo magic masters, William had the Ring of Time. He would not be affected by the time professionals. At most, the time professionals would change their timelines and attack him. But two of the experts from the Magic Sanctuary gave him a lot of pressure. One of them was the God's Map. He was like Timo, who was hiding in the dark. He wanted to keep William in the God's Map. The other was Alanok, who specialized in the Gale Sword. As a wind element swordsman, Alanok was adept at riding the wind. His attack speed and movement speed were both extremely fast. His explosive power was also very strong. But Alanok kept saying Kazakh, Kazakh. It was infuriating. Prince William wanted to break Alanok's knee. He wanted to give Alanok a free punishment so that Alanok would understand that he could not be happy. But at this moment, many experts from the Magic Sanctuary realized that William's tankiness had exceeded the limits of the sky. The space and time professionals were in charge of delaying William. The other 25 legendary experts immediately stood behind Alanok. Body fusion. In an instant, a 10,000-meter long sword energy was unleashed. It was not just an ordinary wind element sword energy. It was infused with more than 10 elemental attributes. The sword energy was pitch black like chaos. Everywhere it passed, the mountains collapsed, the ground was torn apart, and the space was constantly collapsing. At this moment, Alanok had the demeanor of a sword god. If he could kill William with a single strike, he would become a sage. But William, who was in front of them, seemed to finally know their trump card. He finally used a drop of his father's blood essence. He stretched out his hand, seemingly without any change. He said softly, "Thunder Finger, palm." The 10,000-meter long sword energy was shattered. An extremely dense beam of lightning crushed the sword chi at lightning speed and pierced through the heavens and earth. It was like a beam of light that streaked across the space of the saint's seat in an extremely short amount of time. In the next second, rumble, the continent in the sage space was torn apart. Lava gushed out continuously. The tectonic plates of the continent started to move. As for the 20 or so legend rank experts, they fell like corpses. The necromancer was dumbfounded. He suddenly understood why the fearless Viscount of Darkness was running away. Chapter 594. In this continent where people depended on one's father, Tom Mater was the one who had no one to rely on. From weak to strong, he slowly cultivated step by step. It took him thousands of years and countless hardships to slowly cultivate to the legendary rank. Then, because he was recognized by the God of Darkness, he finally stepped into the saint realm. But at this moment, he suddenly felt a sense of sorrow and despair. He was screaming in his heart, "Why? Why is that?" He had used so many methods and thought of all possibilities, but he still could not kill him. It was fine if he had let him escape. After all, before he came to the legendary continent, he had collected a lot of information. It said that the Lord of the City of Dawn was very difficult to deal with. But this guy had been pulled into the sage space. Not only did he not kill him, but he was also going to be killed. What kind of feeling was this? He had brought dozens of level 5 heroes to block the river. But when he rushed in, he discovered that not only was the godly level 23 Garen following behind him, but he also had a blood pool with him. Gosh, damn it. If he was not convinced, he would fight with his father. But it was a pity that he was not the one being bullied here. William glanced at the retreating necromancer. He waved his hand and sent the remaining 2 legendary professionals out of the space tunnel. They vomited blood and fell into the abyss. Then he smiled and walked over. The necromancer looked at the 2 fellows on his left and right. He could not help but swallow his saliva. That was terrible. He was just an ordinary warlock, a normal version of a warlock who did not use a sword. Could they talk nicely and try not to fight? However, it was useless. He could not imagine what kind of destructive and perverted attack the 2 muscular giants with the Lord's fist would inflict on him. They would also inflict unimaginable torture on him. Next, for a full 30 minutes, inhumane torture took place in the sage space. No one knew. No one could save him. Actually, this was not all. Odin even forced the dying necromancer to be a man. What are you doing? Tom Mater roared. He was shaking his body frantically. His hands were tightly gripping Odin's arm. But even if he broke his nails, he could not break free. The man behind him was so strong and powerful. He imprisoned his body, making it impossible for his thin and broken body to resist. The prince chuckled and stretched out his Kato. God's hand. What am I doing? What can I do? Didn't you want to kill me? I'll just let you remember me from now on. Oh no, don't you just want me to surrender? I'm convinced. Don't go on like this, I'll die. Take your hand away, oh. And oh, Tom Mater's body trembled. His expression was no longer as twisted as before, but the temporary pain did not give him true relief. Because he did not know how low William's luck was, what was even harder to imagine was, in this sacred battlefield filled with blood, such a scene that no one knew about actually happened. God of darkness, save me. Save your servant. It's only 100 times, and I can't take it anymore. You can't do it either. William forcefully pried open Tom Mater's mouth. He laughed sinisterly and said, Come, your blood sage body is too slow. Have a taste of this fresh and delicious life potion. No, I won't drink it. I'd rather die. I beg you to be a human. You're the Lord of the City of Dawn. The necromancer cried, and tears streamed down his face. However, he couldn't resist William's powerful hands at all. In the end, he still managed to stuff the life water into his mouth. For the following period of time, 200 times, 300 times, 400 times, 500 times, 600 times, a total of 1,300 times. 3 days and 3 nights. 3 days and 3 nights. William finally completed this sacred and great ritual while perspiring profusely. At this moment, Odin let go of the necromancer, who was completely exhausted. He fell to the ground with a dull expression. His eyes were lifeless, and he looked like a walking corpse. William sat on the ground in exhaustion. He could not help but mutter, as expected of a necromancer who specializes in controlling the undead. His soul resistance is unparalleled. But the death goddess is much more powerful than you. After she was controlled by me, she did not resist at all. Although she was screaming, her voice was much better than yours. When the necromancer heard this, he immediately regained his senses. He was not seriously injured just now. He was just immersed in an unimaginable psychological trauma. But now he knelt on the ground in fear. Master, spare me. Master, spare me. Master, you can control the death goddess. In the future, you will become the master of the gods' continent. William looked at him with disdain and let him stand up. He said in a deep voice, as a soul and mind sage, you should know your current state. Don't think that I can't kill you just because you're a sage. Today, I only need a thought to make you wish you were dead. Tom Mater nodded, but he suddenly thought of the god of darkness. In the next second, a splitting headache appeared, and the soul of the necromancer, who had been tortured, rolled on the ground. He wanted to pull out his soul from his body, crush it, and reassemble it. But soon, the necromancer, who was immersed in the trauma, forgot about the god of darkness and his belief in the god. He looked up at the unhappy William and said bitterly, "Master, you left a mark on my soul, but I'm also a believer of the god of darkness. I was able to enter the sage state because I signed a contract with him. If I do anything that goes against him, he will definitely know." "Oh, then what do you mean?" Tom reorganized his words with a conflicted expression. "I have absolute loyalty to my master, but because of the contract, I have no choice but to complete the orders given to me by the god of darkness. If I dare to do anything that goes against his will, he will definitely know." William raised his eyebrows. "Tell me the consequences. The god of darkness cannot kill me directly. He cannot even control me. But I was born with the darkness attribute. I believe in darkness and am good at necromancy. Moreover, I signed a contract with him. That's how I managed to enter the sage state. So if I dare to betray him, he can remove my sage combat power and make me a useless great enchanter." After Tom finished speaking, his head lowered. It could not be helped. He was able to enter the sage state because he had received the blessings of the god of darkness. It allowed him to comprehend more laws of darkness. But those laws were not comprehended by himself. The things that he comprehended were controlled by the god of darkness. If the god of darkness could bestow something, he could naturally take it back. William stroked his chin and pondered. Suddenly, he had an idea. He did not need to recruit Tom to the City of Dawn. Tom could work for him now. Although the addition of a sage would increase his combat power, if Tom betrayed the god of darkness, he would only be an ordinary great enchanter. He would not even be as good as the two saint souls in William's hands. But if Tom continued to be loyal to the Church of Magic on the surface while secretly signing a contract with the god of darkness, William would eventually control him. Then Tom, this little bastard, might become a super traitor. William said in a deep voice, "Then you will continue to take over the magic sanctuary." I left two legendary professionals behind. They were knocked unconscious when they fell into the abyss. Bring them back to the Church of Magic. Oh yes, don't stay in the legendary continent. If you stay here, you will continue to oppose me. Even if you return to the legendary continent, don't accept any missions to oppose me. Tom Martyr hurriedly nodded. Yes, Master. According to the current situation, the magic sanctuary that only has the space and time enchanters left is meaningless. Master, what do you want me to do after returning to the Church of Magic? You don't have to do anything. After all, you're a Grand Mage Saint. It doesn't matter if you fail this mission. At least you will bring back two great enchanters. They won't punish you. Just continue to stay there. As for information about me, just tell me what you need to. Don't keep anything from me. There will be trouble. But if the Church of Magic and the God of Darkness have any missions for you, remember to inform me immediately. Yes. The necromancer nodded. William waved his hand and let him leave. Just as he was about to leave respectfully, William raised his eyebrows. The prince raised his eyebrows again and sneered. Don't think that I cherish your life just because you are a warlock saint. You could try to break the soul imprint on your own. Even if you find the God of Darkness, he will still need some time. Don't think that I will show mercy during this period of time. A trace of panic flashed across Tom Mater's face, and he quickly said, Absolutely not. Absolutely not. My loyalty to Master will be maintained forever. The battle at the sage position. William had made a killing. He had killed many legendary professionals and dealt with the necromancer. He had obtained a lot of rewards, experience points, and corpses. He had also completed the mission of cooperating with the Shrine of Slaying. Prompt. You have completed the SS level mission destruction of the Magic Sanctuary in advance. Prompt. Your mission completion rate is 105%. Prompt. As you completed the mission a few months in advance, you did not cause any losses to the collaborators. Your rewards will be greatly increased. Prompt. You have obtained 5 plus 3, 5 billion experience points. Prompt. You have obtained a random reward X17. Do you want to draw the random reward? No, of course. William refused. It was not the time to check the rewards. He had just killed so many legendary professionals, and he had obtained a lot of random rewards. Now, he had 56 random rewards. Gosh, what did this mean? He had made a killing. As long as he was not unlucky, yes, he had made a killing. But even if he was unlucky, he would gain attribute points. He could not make a loss. In William's heart, there was no such thing as a loss. He felt that he could at least eat one drop of his father's blood essence. However, William glanced at his 2 points of luck points and could not help but look up at the sky. When will my unlucky days end? Can't I be a lucky emperor just because I'm handsome? Oh, that's right. If I can still be a lucky emperor, the position of the Lord of the Era will be decided internally. William pursed his lips. He asked Odin to tear open the dimension and bring him back to the legendary continent. He wanted to find the little princess and the unicorn beside her. It had to be said, there were too many random rewards this time. He wanted to eat the unicorn. Chapter 595. The sage necromancer had led 28 legendary experts to ambush the City of Dawn. But the Lord of Dawn, who had been dragged into the sage space, had turned the tables. Not only had he killed 26 legendary experts of the magic sanctuary, but he had also defeated the sage necromancer. After William came out, he used his own methods to spread the news to the entire continent. For a moment, many forces in the legendary continent were in an uproar. Many people chose not to believe it, but the City of Dawn had used its own methods to prove that the magic sanctuary was finished. Burn Cinder, Sarimas, Wendy, and Alfred had led their troops to attack the headquarters of the magic sanctuary. Just when most people thought that a great battle was unavoidable, but they saw a group of enchanters and mages walking out of the magic towers obediently. They had all chosen to surrender. They did not resist at all. As a result, everyone knew about it. The necromancer, who was supposed to take over the magic sanctuary, had escaped. He did not dare to return to the headquarters of the magic sanctuary. He had escaped with the 2 remaining great enchanters. But the necromancer had his own proof. He had also revealed a lot of information about the Lord of Dawn. Although he had been hit by the weapon of misfortune, and his luck had declined, his strength was still increasing rapidly. This was especially true for his Tao protector, who had already stepped into the Saint realm and was extremely powerful. His words were heard. Many people were dumbfounded. A sage was acting as a guardian for the legendary Lord of the City of Dawn. That lightning type saint would rather conceal his aura and cover his face to hide in the dark to protect his safety. Gosh, is he the son of destiny? Could it be that he is an expert recruited by father? Definitely not. Before Roger's providence left the impassable continent, the guardian had already appeared. Both of them are of the thunder element. Could it be that the Lord of Dawn is the reincarnation of the thunder god? Thunder god Thor, who was sitting in the tavern, could not help but sniffle when he heard this. He turned and left. It was true. He suddenly had the urge to cry. The Lord of Dawn had not only robbed his tomb, snatched his hand, and played with his sword. He even wanted to take away his title as the reincarnation of the thunder god. Mother Vasterskir, this is too much, really too much. Thor gradually turned his gaze south and muttered to himself, "It's time to teach this little bastard a lesson." After looking for Camelot to compensate for his losses, William arrived at the City of Dawn. He jogged to the Moonlight Tree. He found a unicorn next to Annie and pulled its butt hard. A large amount of horsehair was pulled out, and the unicorn's butt was almost bald. This made the unicorn cry out in pain, and it even wanted to kick his royal highness with its hind legs. It was a pity that the unicorn was only at the epic level. As soon as the heaven-suppressing blade appeared, the unicorn withered in an instant and could only angrily use the invisibility spell. It looked like it had disappeared into the distance, but it was actually squatting in a corner and shutting itself off. Tears the size of soybeans streamed down its cheeks. It was a pitiful sight. When Annie saw this, she rolled her eyes and couldn't help but say, "You're already a legendary. Why are you still bullying it? Especially since you're holding a sword. That's too much. I'm still bullying you." William laughed and did not hesitate to touch her thigh. He ignored the little princess's blushing face and turned to run away. It was really exciting. In the city lord's mansion, William burned incense and took a bath. Then he calmed himself down and muttered, "I've finished pulling the two-tool person. It's time to decide my fate." Bold 6 roots. Appear. A miraculous 56 consecutive draws. Ding dong. Ding dong. Ding dong. The notifications kept ringing. Prompt. Your physical strength plus 20. Prompt. Your physical strength plus 20. Prompt. Your strength plus 20 next. A series of notifications rang out. Apart from 6 special prompts, there were only 6 special prompts. The rest were all attributes. There was nothing wrong with it. A total of 56 random draws had resulted in a total of 50 random attribute increases. He had gained 1,000 attribute points, and he could also feel the improvement in all aspects of his physical fitness. But the probability of the random draw was 2F*King realistic. The officials of the gods had to come out and take a beating. Logically speaking, the random draw could increase luck. But his charm had increased by 40 points, and his luck had not increased at all. The rest had been used on the 4-dimensional attributes. The final result was power plus 300, physical strength plus 400, agility plus 200, intelligence plus 60, and charm plus 40. D***in, I've drawn so many physical strength points. My health points are almost 800,000. I'm a ranger. Can't you give me some agility? William's mouth twitched. He felt a little uncomfortable. The random draw had made him tankier, but even if he was a tank, he still wanted to attack. But then again, I don't have enough skills as a ranger. Increasing agility will only increase my attack speed and running speed. My physical strength is also quite good. Hee. The prince swallowed his saliva. He had become tankier, and he was not afraid of death. 2 words. It was delicious. As for the other 6 random draws, they were not simple. They each had their own unique effects, and they were also very strange. There were tools, skills, and endowments. They seemed to be the guarantee for 56 consecutive draws. Oh, it was the first time William knew that the god's mainframe had such a trick. He had not experienced it before because he had not had many random draws. The first was a skill. It was called protective energy. When the prince saw this skill, he immediately used a large amount of experience points and leveled up to level 30. That was right. The upper limit of the protective energy skill was level 30, but its effects were amazing. Protective vigor energy level 30 skill description. You can transform your battle energy protective energy into a more solid and sturdy protective energy. It will only be attached to the surface of your body, so that your movements will be more convenient and swift. Special effect. On the basis of the battle energy shield, the defensive power and defense of the protective energy will increase by 30%. Special effect. Only when the protective energy shield is shattered can you deal effective damage. Otherwise, no matter how many attacks there are, you will not be harmed. Special effect. When you activate the protective energy shield, the enemy's true damage and mental damage will not be effective. Special effect. After the protective energy shield is shattered, you need to activate the battle energy shield for 5 seconds before it can be transformed into protective energy shield again. In other words, every time you are interrupted, you need to activate the protective energy shield for 10 seconds. Consumption. No additional consumption. This was a skill created by the Gale swordsman. It was a pity that he was unable to survive the powerful firepower. TSK. This is a skill created by Urino. It's a pity that his defense is not strong enough. Even with this skill, it's useless against my sage-level combat power. But I'm different. I was born tanky. This is a BMW for a hero and a Mercedes-Benz for a tycoon. William smiled proudly. He felt that this protective shield had been specially created for him. It had increased his tankiness to a whole new level. The second reward was a spirit-type talent. Endowment, mental immunity. If the same enemy causes mental damage to you multiple times, you can reduce mental damage by 10% each time, up to a maximum of 60%. After you leave the battle, the calculation will be recalculated. Impressive. With this endowment and the protection of the Holy Spirit, I basically have very few weaknesses in terms of mental strength. But I need to keep adding them, which means that I have to constantly suffer mental damage from the same person to maximize my advantage. Fortunately, I have thick skin and flesh, so I'm not afraid of death. William smacked his lips. The third reward was a tool. Dream of eternity, scroll quality, divine weapon position level, divine weapon function. When used at a specific time and location, the user can dream of a distant era. Friendly reminder. The effect of this scroll is extremely powerful. Please do not try the wrong place and time. Otherwise, unimaginable accidents will occur. Oh my God, it's this thing? William inhaled a mouthful of cold air. In his previous life, not only had he seen this item, but he had also been fortunate enough to use it. It was during that period of time that he had seen many unimaginable things. For example, he had once said that he had seen professionals who trained in both thunder and soul attributes. However, William had only returned to the end of the Second Era, and the quality of the scroll was only legendary. But the scroll in front of him was a sacred weapon. Liar, this is dream of eternity. Perhaps I've really returned to the past, and my life is in danger. William narrowed his eyes. He decided to bring the magic tower to Moses. In his previous life, he had felt that there was something wrong with the magic tower. As for the other three items, they were three strange tools. There was nothing much to say. Unless it was used at a specific location, it would be very difficult to use them. But if it could be used, it would have unexpected effects. William could not wait any longer. He transformed into a bolt of lightning and arrived at the magic tower. When he arrived, he discovered that Moses was stroking the cat with a serious expression. The little black cat in her arms did not dare to move, for fear that it would be pinched to death on the spot. William swallowed his saliva. What's wrong? I divined that you were in danger, so I almost ran out to save you. But you're fine now. You even want to look for your little princess. I didn't dare to do anything, so I just stroked the cat. Moses squinted her eyes and spoke softly. She stroked the cat even more fiercely. The little black cat was stroked a few times, and it almost rolled its eyes. Ahem, let's change the topic. William grinned and walked over. He carried the little black cat, who was about to die, away. Then he took out the Dream of Eternity scroll and handed it over. The moment the scroll appeared, Moses' expression changed. Moses' expression changed. She took the scroll and could not help but ask, "Where did you get this scroll?" A few days ago, the members of the Magic Sanctuary ambushed me. I settled them all. I found it in their space rings. William lied, because the scroll was not among the loot. But he could sense that the random rewards given by the god's mastermind were treasures hidden by the deceased. For example, the map of the blood essence of the blood dragon. After he killed Gerdonaces, he did not find this item. But the mastermind used other methods to reward him with a hidden item. So William did not know who this item belonged to. Moses hesitated for a while before she said in a deep voice, "This is a time scroll. It can be used to travel back in time. The quality of this scroll requires at least the origin of a time god." What do you mean? The goddess of magic narrowed her eyes. To create such a powerful time scroll, at least one time god must be killed. What do you think? William's mouth was dry. This scroll seemed to be quite powerful. Chapter 596. Can this scroll allow one to return to the past? Moses nodded. Yes. As long as you choose the right time and place, you can return to the past. To a certain extent, you can obtain certain things from a scroll. It's not as simple as dreaming. Does that mean that I can change the timeline and see my past self? William was in disbelief. The ability to change the timeline was too powerful. Goddess Mo nodded, but then shook her head. She clenched the scroll in her hand and sighed in an indescribable tone. It's not that easy. You don't know who made this scroll, and you can't be sure that you will return to that timeline. Even if you return to the past, you won't be able to interfere with anything in most situations. Actually, most of the epic creatures are like a dream. You can't change anything that you see or experience. It's like an invisible wall is blocking you, unless you have to do it. Wait, what do you mean by I have to do it? But I seem to be able to make some changes to the past. William's head was about to explode. His intelligence was the lowest among the 4 attributes. He could not understand what she was saying. Rather than saying that you've made some changes to the past, it's more accurate to say that it's a predetermined fate. You seem to have made some changes, but perhaps it's something that was bound to happen. That's how the current timeline came to be. Actually, this is fate. For example, you appeared at a certain time in the past. Because you made some changes, the current timeline came to be. Moses looked deeply at William. What the F asterisk CK? William's head was about to explode. Director M.O. rolled his eyes. Whenever this silly boy in front of him was confused, he would start using the chosen one's language. But then again, it seemed that it was easy to learn the language of the chosen ones. William was still puzzled. He asked, "Ahem, are you sure that I won't give this to others? Are you sure that telling me these things won't change the timeline? The past can't be changed, whether I tell you or not. You can't change what has already happened. If you give this scroll to someone else, perhaps he appeared at a certain time in that era and did something. That's how the current timeline came to be." Moses hesitated for a while before continuing. Or perhaps he just had a dream and didn't change anything, so the current timeline hasn't changed. Another possibility was that he had done something, but the impact of that incident was very small and did not affect the current timeline. Anyway, there are many possibilities. But in conclusion, things that have happened can't be changed. And what has happened will definitely happen. It's useless no matter how much you think. Especially an idiot like you who knows nothing about the time element. Thinking too much will only cause you a headache. This scroll isn't for now. We'll talk about it later. Moses threw the scroll back. The prince caught it and put it into his spatial ring thoughtfully. But he suddenly asked, "You know that my avatar has advanced to the sage state, but do you know that I named him Odin?" Moses was stunned. It was as if her computer had crashed. She just stared blankly at William and didn't move. William scratched his head and waved his hand in front of her eyes. He's not moving. Could it be that I've heard of the name Odin before? William glanced at the motionless Moses and glanced at her red lips. He couldn't help but lick his lips. He inexplicably moved his face closer. Smack! William covered his face and slowly turned his head. He saw the blushing Moses and said unhappily, "I've never heard of it. If you dare to bully me when I'm distracted again, I'll slap you and send you out of the atmosphere." But is your avatar really called Odin? Yes, I seem to have some impression of it. Just like your father's name, I also have some impression of it. But I can't find any information about them from my memory. After reincarnation, we'll lose some memories? Moses nodded helplessly. Yes, we'll also lose some very important memories. In fact, the gods reincarnate to completely strip away their beliefs, so they can't avoid losing some memories. So in some matters, we don't know as much as the gods in the divine realm. But you also have an impression of my father's name? What does that mean? William started to have a headache again. Although he felt that his father was not ordinary, he didn't think that his father could be a god from the mythological era. Moses shrugged. I don't know, but since I don't have any memory of him, I think the others don't either. If you really want to know who he is, you can use the altar to ask a god who hasn't reincarnated. Forget it. I don't want to have anything to do with them. William shook his head and chose to refuse. Other than leveling up his protective chi to level 30, William also leveled up his other skills. He leveled up by another 10 levels, reaching a whole number. 250. He was only 20 levels away from the level 270 sage state. It could almost be said that in the next 10 years, he would definitely step into the sage state. It was very stable. After all, other than dying, there was no possibility of him dropping levels. Not to mention how much experience the attack of the sea monsters would bring. The super mission of the Dark World Outpost would definitely be an SSS-level mission. As long as he could perfectly take down an outpost, even if he didn't get a lot of experience points, it was almost enough. As for the following period of time, William holed up in the City of Dawn and became a homebody. In his previous life, he fully displayed the characteristics of a cat playing games at home. Every day, besides looking for Moses to look at the stars, he would accompany the little princess to look at the moon. His life was very comfortable. After he completely took over the resources of the Magic Sanctuary headquarters, the power of the City of Dawn had once again stabilized. It was now one of the top 4 powers in the legendary continent. It was almost impossible for other powers to step on the City of Dawn. To a certain extent, the City of Dawn had even surpassed the Mercenary Guild. However, the quality of the mercenaries in the legendary continent was not perfect. The City of Dawn did not have that many resources to support idlers. Hence, the City of Dawn only occupied the mercenary missions in the legendary continent. Because of this, there were still many large, medium, and small mercenary teams. The Mercenary Guild still had its own value, but it was precisely because the City of Dawn had a strong military force and abundant funds. The Mercenary Guild and the City of Dawn had signed many agreements to ensure that both sides could develop steadily. They tried their best not to start a war because of certain interests. 5 months later, the City of Dawn was facing another crisis. This time, it was not the danger of the legendary continent. Instead, it was a disaster for the coastal cities in the east, west, and south of the legendary continent. Of course, it was more like a disaster for the other small and medium powers. But for the City of Dawn, which was already prepared, this opportunity was a sumptuous feast. At this moment, William and many professionals of other powers were floating thousands of meters in the sky. They were watching the attack of the sea monsters. Many professionals looked curiously at the scene in front of them. They did not expect the Lord of the City of Dawn to be so imaginative. He had used iron chains to link thousands of warships together. The steel bodies of these warships formed an indestructible wall that blocked the sea monsters that emerged from the water. Aren't they afraid of being attacked by fire? Someone frowned. Have you seen any sea monster that can attack with fire? Someone asked. Ahem, fire attacks are not a problem. Everyone knows magic. William did not say anything when he heard this group of bastards. He was not Boss Chow. If someone dared to set fire to his territory, he would dare to set fire to their territory. Damn it. If you don't believe me, you can try. Next, as more and more sea beasts emerged from the water, the sea beasts began to move. The sea monsters exploded. The sound of the cannons boomed. Before the sea monsters could even get close to the ship, they were blasted into pieces by the cannons. The magic cannons were controlled by the Rangers. They accurately hit the huge sea monsters that were at the Grandmaster level. But this was not a big deal. The merchants who were floating in the sky did not see anything that was too outstanding. But then, when the sea monsters had completely formed their numbers and attacked with an unstoppable momentum, the cannons were opened. Many cumbersome magical Gatling guns with 6 tubes appeared in front of everyone. Before they could ask Prince William curiously, everyone watched as the 6 tubes began to spin. Then, the speed, power, and number of energy bullets were unleashed. Countless densely packed energy bullets swept across the entire surface of the sea. Regardless of whether it was the magical beast that leaped into the sky or on the surface of the sea, they were all torn into pieces in a short period of time. This time, tens of thousands of sea monsters attacked, but they were completely defeated within 3 minutes. There was no chance for the epic and legendary professionals to attack. Only broken limbs were left on the surface of the sea. Bright red blood dyed the surface of the sea. The professionals of the Dawn Fleet used their own methods to collect the loot on the surface of the sea. At the sight of this, many professionals widened their diamond-studded magical dog eyes. Gosh, what's this? William, when did the Southern Region Wanderers Chamber of Commerce treat you badly? You have such a good item, but you're still hiding it. It's outrageous. That's right. How much is this? We'll buy it. We're not short of money. That's right. William smiled and turned his head. He used the expression of an arms dealer and said, "We can negotiate the price, but I only want magical crystals." The diplomatic envoys from the Southern Region Wanderers Chamber of Commerce, the Eastern Region Chamber of Commerce Alliance, the Mercenary Guild, the Palace of Darkness, and the Temple of Light hesitated for a while before they nodded decisively. They bought it. This kind of killing weapon would definitely play a powerful role in future wars. Once they bought it, they could let the mages study it. When that time came, they would not need to trade with the City of Dawn. William laughed and said, "This is version 1.0. The City of Dawn now has version 5.0 of the magical Gatling gun. There are large, medium, and small Gatling guns. They also come with super core functions and self-destruct functions. They can perish together with the enemy at any time. Oh, the minimum purchase limit of this heavy firepower is 1,000 units. If you buy 1,000 units of version 1, 0 Gatling guns, you could buy version 2, 0. Do you want to buy version 5, 0 Gatling guns? Oh, you make a killing. The expressions of the envoys from the major forces darkened. Wait a minute. What do you mean by self-destruct functions? Chapter 597. After William introduced the heavy Gatling gun, he casually took out a portable Gatling gun. After shooting a few hundred rounds, he said, "The portable mana Gatling gun is the exclusive weapon for cannon gunners to clear monsters. Different qualities have different powers. Besides the cannon gunners, all the professionals here can use it as long as they have enough power." What? The group of people could not help but take half a step back in midair. One of the epic cannon gunners could not hold it in any longer. He leaned forward and asked, "Do you have an epic mana Gatling gun?" "Yes." William took out a larger mana Gatling gun and said in a deep voice, "This portable Gatling gun has an extraordinary rune core. As long as 99 magical crystals are used to charge it, even an epic professional can deal significant damage. But everyone knows that an epic professional shield is very strong. It's best to use this Gatling gun after the shield is worn off." "That's still very powerful," someone exclaimed. "The key is that it has a fast firing speed, strong power, and an exaggerated impact." A female professional covered her mouth and exclaimed. A messenger from the Temple of Light asked, "Is there anything else that the City of Dawn is selling? I feel that these things will be very useful in the future." As soon as he said this, everyone instantly understood. They wanted to build an outpost in the Dark World. If they could obtain these magical weapons, they would not need to exchange the lives of the warriors to deal with the endless number of dark creatures. They could use the Gatling gun to shoot at the creatures. William laughed and said, "Of course, there's also the mana destruction gun." He took out a sniper rifle and aimed at a sea beast 30,000 meters away. He pulled the trigger. Bang! Blood splattered everywhere. When he fired, he had already hit the target. The sea beast, which was 7 or 8 meters long, turned into a pile of minced meat when it leaped into the air. The energy beam that hit it flew for 20,000 meters before it gradually disappeared. Not only was the firing speed astonishing, but its power was also not to be underestimated. The mana destruction gun has a unique rune core. The energy source is provided by 18 magical crystals. After 36 shots, the energy source will be recharged. It has the effect of ultra-long range attacks. If it was used by a launcher, it could increase the damage and destroy the normal shield of an epic profession. In a situation where an epic profession didn't have a shield, it could really hit the head with one shot. TSK. Even if he wasn't killed, he would be severely injured. Of course, I'm talking about ordinary rangers and magisters. That's still very strong. The others continued to stare blankly. William took out a magical pistol and pulled the trigger at the shield bearer from the mercenary guild. Bang, bang, bang. The battle energy shield trembled continuously. Although it couldn't destroy the epic rank shield warrior's combat aura shield, it was still very powerful. The epic ranked shield warrior gulped. Fortunately, he had sensed that something was amiss and had activated his battle energy shield in advance. Otherwise, even if he wasn't seriously injured, it would definitely be painful if he was shot. The prince, on the other hand, did not seem to care at all. The magic pistol has a continuous firing function that hand cannons do not have. Although its power is not comparable to hand cannons of the same level, it can cause considerable damage to the enemy when they do not have combat energy and magic shields. Cannon gunners can unleash greater power with the above magical weapons. More importantly, all the weapons in the City of Dawn can be used by professionals of the same level. Once he finished speaking, many of the diplomats present were completely stunned. When the City of Dawn announced that it had developed many magical weapons, many powers were somewhat disdainful. Some of them did not even think much of it. They were only concerned about the reputation of the City of Dawn as a top power, so they sent a group of epic diplomats. But now, oh my God, the City of Dawn had so many weapons. It was almost going to change the war situation in this world. But they were very curious. Why was the Dawn Army, which had only a dozen years of history, so outstanding in developing magical weapons? Come, show. Let me comb your hair in the middle with my sky halberd. Of course, William would not tell them that many powerful players had provided him with various gun blueprints in exchange for some gold coins and experience points. He just smiled and said, "But in the spirit of humanism, the City of Dawn will add some restrictions to the magic Gatling. It will not be able to attack humans, Serafkin, elves, dwarves, half-elves, and other intelligent creatures." That's understandable. The magic Gatling is indeed a little overpowered. Speaking of which, even magic cannons are rarely used in wars between intelligent races. How much are these things sold for? Someone asked eagerly. We only want magical crystals. William raised his eyebrows. Even with the blueprints and Moses personally conducting the research, the City of Dawn had used up 7 levels of magical crystals to develop these items, as well as the stockpile of magical crystals. But he believed that with these great treasures, he would be able to earn back his capital with interest. He did not hesitate much. The business representatives of the various powers nodded in agreement, but they still took out their magic transmission scrolls to discuss with the headquarters. It was not that they did not have enough magical crystals, but they wanted to know how much they wanted. Half an hour later, William looked at the order in front of him and expressionlessly raised his eyebrows. All right, we'll hand over the money and the goods. The City of Dawn has a lot of these things. Was there a lot? Not really. William would buy 1,000 of each weapon. That was right. This was the minimum purchase limit of the City of Dawn. The purpose of these ** starts was obvious. They wanted to buy the weapons and decipher them. William smiled at them on the surface, but he was cursing Gan Lin Yang in his heart. He watched them leave. That was because he really wanted to ask how many great mages each faction had if they did not have a complete set of great enchanters, and if they did not have good teamwork. Then, they would not be able to decipher the core runes. Even if the Grand Warlock Saint came, he would not be able to do so. Just wait for them to self-destruct. ***. I'm kind enough to sell you some things, but you want to take advantage of me? Next time, I'll increase the price. The prince laughed coldly. He turned and flew to the newly built Dawn vessel. At this moment, Captain Jack was commanding many soldiers to collect the spoils of war. He was holding a bottle of wine and gulping it down endlessly. Fortunately, the physical fitness of an epic professional was completely immune to alcohol. It was impossible for him to get drunk. William did not care about his bad habit. He just asked, in a month this is the 3rd beast tide. Can you predict the time of the next beast tide? Captain Jack stroked his mustache and said with a bitter expression, I don't know. The attacks of these creatures are completely irregular. Fortunately, the difficulty of defending against them is not too high. Where's your big baby? William casually asked. It was the super octopus sea monster that was 10,000 meters long. Jack's expression brightened. He said in a gentle tone, My cute little Paul. I have made him conceal his aura and hide in the deep sea. He can rush over to help clear the sea monsters at any time. But so far, he has not encountered any legendary sea monsters, so I did not make him attack. William was silent for 2 seconds. Cute little Paul? A super sea monster that was close to the sage level, and it was still cute. Were you a pervert? Speaking of this, Douglas suddenly flew out of the sea. He was like a shapeless mass of water elements. His state was very strange. William could not help but feel that the inheritance of the sea god was quite something. Ever since Douglas had entered the legendary level 2 months ago, his training speed had not slowed down. Instead, it had been increasing steadily. As long as he was in the deep sea, he was like a fish in water. He had strong combat power. He could use the water elements within a radius of hundreds of thousands of meters. For words, he was invincible in sea battles. As long as there were enough water elements, he could have unimaginable combat power. Not only could he easily use the power of the sea, but his recovery speed was also extremely fast. William had fought with Douglas, who had just entered the legendary level. On land, he would definitely win. But in the sea, he had no chance of winning unless he used his father's blood essence. But that would not be a spar. He would have to beat Douglet to death. Hence, the combination of Douglet and Captain Jack was enough to ensure the safety of the Dawn Navy. Douglet did not know how long he stayed in the sea. His body gradually materialized, and he said with a smile, "Your Highness, don't worry about the beast tide. I already know when the next beast tide will come, as well as how many there will be." "You infiltrated the deep-sea race." William was a little surprised. He had wanted to use the Beast God necklace to explore. Douglet nodded. "Yes, the inheritance of the sea god is very magical. There are many techniques and abilities that allow me to control the sea. More importantly, I use the secret technique to cultivate the water elemental body. It is very powerful. When I am in the sea, as long as I use the elemental body to the maximum, even some sage experts will not be able to detect my presence. It is as if I have completely turned into a pool of seawater. It is a perfect elemental body. Hence, I really made a trip to the deep-sea race and found out their attack direction." William narrowed his eyes. "Very good. Since we have this information, we can also assign some people to the various coastal forces. We can also take the opportunity to make a profit. There's basically no profit in the southern region, because apart from us, the coastal areas of the southern region are—" Douglet coughed lightly and continued, "However, there are many coastal cities in the eastern and western regions. After enduring 2 waves of beast tides, they feel that they can't hold on any longer. In addition, they do not have good things like the magic Gatling gun. Not only can we accept employment, but we can also take the opportunity to sell some weapons." William nodded. "Okay, I will let Lautner negotiate with them. If you still want to go to the deep sea race, remember to be careful. There are many sages in this race, and they seem to be related to the Dark World." "Understood. What about Prince William?" "Of course I will go back and create a set of divine equipment. What if I accidentally die when I go to the Dark World?" The others looked at William with eager expressions, as if saying, "Boss, we need it too." "No, you're the Navy. You don't need to go to the Dark World, nor do you need divine equipment." William raised his eyebrows. What was divine equipment? It was a piece of equipment that was in between the divine and legendary levels. It was neither too high nor too low, but it was suitable for professionals at the peak of the legendary level. However, the value of this equipment was very high. It was difficult for ordinary experts at the peak of the legendary level to own it. But who was Prince William? He was a child of a rich family. His father had a set of divine equipment. How bad could he be? Chapter 598. How to make divine quality equipment. The first step was to find a broken divine weapon with divinity. The second step was to extract the divinity from the divine weapon. The third step was to gather enough materials to make the equipment. Conclusion. Making divine equipment is as simple as how to lock an elephant in a refrigerator. It has the same simple steps. Where to get the broken divine weapon. The battlefield of the gods beneath the city of Dawn had to be mentioned. Ever since William had Odin's avatar, he had been excavating the ancient ruins underground. Now he had found the remains of 6 gods, as well as 3 broken divine weapons with remnant divinity. But even so, there was still a certain difficulty in making them. Most people could not extract the divinity from the broken divine weapons. Even if they could, they would lose a lot of it. As a result, there were very few great enchanters who could make divine equipment. Professionals who were not from the top forces or empires had no chance to make divine equipment. However, His Royal Highness had a beautiful and versatile goddess at home. She just had a lot of skills in the majestic magic tower. Goddess Moses looked at the 3 broken divine weapons on the ground. She suspected that William had gone to dig graves again. Fortunately, after some explanation, she understood that the City of Dawn was built on the battlefield of the gods. I was wondering why these things looked so familiar. I didn't expect that I hadn't discovered it before. It seems that they were hidden very well. Moses frowned slightly and bit his finger as he muttered to himself. Do you know who these broken divine weapons belong to? Actually, I have dug out many corpses, but only some bones that are hard enough are left. They are not as good as these divine weapons. At least they can preserve some divinity. But they are the bones of the gods. I have kept them. In the future, I will set up a God Remains museum in the City of Dawn. Maybe I can make a small fortune." William laughed. Back then, this border town had become a battleground for the players because the broken divine weapons could be made into divine equipment. Although the bones of the gods could not be made into divine equipment, they were hard enough to be one of the materials for legendary equipment. However, His Royal Highness was now the lord of a top-tier faction. There is absolutely no need for him to forge these bones into legendary equipment. It would be better to leave them for the players to see. This would also increase his B points, causing the players to drool with envy. However, they would not be able to use these bones as materials to forge weapons. When Moses heard the word museum, he couldn't help but roll his eyes. "Then I'll thank you on their behalf. By the way, have you collected all the divine artifacts and remains?" "No, I only explored a small area and found these things." "Oh, since that's the case, take your time to look for it. Remember to bring along the Dream of Eternity scroll. It might come in handy." Moses suddenly smiled mysteriously. William suddenly had a bad feeling, but no matter how hard he asked, Goddess Mo didn't say anything more. She just sat cross-legged on the ground and kept fiddling with the broken god artifacts. In less than half an hour, all the divinity was extracted and turned into a crystal ball of light that hovered in her hand. As for those divine artifacts, they naturally could not remain in their original state. With a slight breeze, they turned into a pile of dust, no longer having any quality. There was no other way. If not for the fact that the divinity was retained, these things would have vanished into thin air. William didn't dwell on the matter of the Dream of Eternity scroll. He decisively threw all the legendary materials that he had prepared on the ground. 50% of the materials were thunder crystals that were obtained from the Thunder Territory. During this period of time, William also discovered something interesting. The Thunder Souls in the Thunder Dominion were actually becoming stronger. It seemed that due to the recovery of magic, the Thunder element in the Thunder Dominion was also constantly increasing. Now, many legendary Thunder Souls had been born. Fortunately, this group of silly people treated him as one of their kind and didn't attack him. They allowed him to collect various materials in the Thunder Territory. After William went to the Thunder Territory a few times, he even used his good looks to become good buddies with this group of silly people. He didn't know when he would be able to bring them out for a stroll. Next, William watched as Moses started to forge equipment. He didn't dare to make a sound. He obediently sat on a small stool and watched. He was like a little blind monk who was diligently learning and improving every day. Moses casually sprinkled various runes into the materials, melting and fusing them. William opened his eyes wide and tried to learn a little bit of the technique. It was a pity. In the end, he gave in. It was true. He couldn't understand these fancy operations at all. Of course, he didn't intend to learn the skill of forging equipment through inheritance. Because he wasn't single, he had to forge the equipment himself. His little goddess wasn't useless. Time continued to pass. William looked at Moses, who was diligently forging equipment. He felt that a woman who worked hard was also very handsome. After 7 days and 7 nights of forging, Moses didn't sleep or rest. A thunder bead the size of a tangerine appeared. William opened his mouth and bit his finger. Crack! His teeth fell out. Musasi's tired face suddenly burst into laughter. William laughed and stood up. He rubbed her little head. How could he not know how hard his hand was? He just wanted to make the little goddess Moses laugh. Then he picked up the thunder bead and spat blood on it. In an instant, the small bead instantly fused into his body. In an instant, it covered his entire body. The design was still brown, and it was still so handsome, heroic, and domineering. The attributes of the equipment appeared in front of William. Instantly, William was delighted. He had finally found an indestructible equipment. At least, other than sages, it was very difficult for others to beat him until he was left with only his physical body. It had to be said, recently, because his defensive equipment wasn't very good, he had to run naked every time he fought. Fortunately, he always fought in a place with no one around. Otherwise, He would have worn the underpants that he could never take off. Holy Thunder Equipment Set, Divinity, Quality, Divinity Position Level, Legendary Creator, Moses Saint Vein Materials, Divinity, Thunder Crystal, Overall Defense. 8,000 power plus 400 physical strength plus 300 agility plus 350 intelligence plus 250 weight. 36 kg durability. 130000 durability recovery speed. 300 points per second usage requirement. For 1,000 plus power, for 1,000 plus physical strength usage requirement. William Blackleaf Equipment Set Divinity Equipment Set Special Effect. Health plus 12,000 Divinity. Equipment Set Special Effect. Elemental Defense plus 20% Divinity Equipment Set Special Effect. Thunder Elemental Attack plus 20% Divinity Equipment Set Special Effect. Control skills below the Sage level will be ineffective against you. Divinity Equipment Set Special Effect. You will be immune to 10% of true damage. Thunderbolt Divinity. Passive every time you attack the same enemy 3 times. You will trigger the power of Thunderbolt. This will increase the attack power of your third attack by 200%. Consumption. None cooldown. 3 seconds Thunder Escape. Divinity. Active, you can escape into the Thunder territory for a short period of time and observe the situation outside. During this period of time, you can jump out of the Thunder territory at any time. Before the time limit is reached, you can choose to leave the Thunder territory or stay in the Thunder territory. Consumption. None cooldown. 30 seconds cooldown. 10 minutes Thunder God Recovery. Active, you can temporarily borrow the power of the Thunder rules, allowing you to have an advanced Thunder elemental body for a certain period of time. Consumption. None cooldown. 30 minutes cooldown. 7 days. Friendly reminder. Divinity Equipment is the strongest equipment below the Divine Equipment. The supplementary skills seem very simple, but each has its own unique effects. Please enjoy it. Oh my, this isn't fake. It's really powerful. Whether it's the special effects or the supplementary skills, almost all of them are godly skills. William was a little surprised. He didn't expect Moses to make this equipment so well. It was a combination of defense, attack, and escape. Moses knew himself too well. He was afraid that he would die on the battlefield in the future. There was no need to talk about the attribute bonuses and the various special effects. The 3 skills were also very powerful. Thunderbolt was like the W passive skill of the N. It couldn't cause true damage, but his endowment and the heaven-suppressing blade had the effect of true damage. On the other hand, the lightning escape was much more powerful. It allowed him to directly appear in the lightning dominion. Not only did it give him 30 seconds to escape from battle, it was also equivalent to returning him to his home. If someone really intended to chase after him, it was guaranteed that besides those fellows who were saints, other enemies would definitely die when faced with the millions of lightning souls. As for the advanced elemental body, this was a little awesome. Holy body. Yes, it was Yihei's, it was obviously the elemental body that only sages and gods could possess. Although the attributes wouldn't increase by much, it was enough for him to use many thunder rules. It couldn't be compared to sages, but it would definitely have an advantage when facing a legendary professional. But when he thought of his father's divine equipment, instantly, the prince was jealous. It was true. He was about to cry. He dared to swear that the attributes of his father's equipment were 3 to 4 times stronger than his own. Fortunately, he took a deep breath and stopped thinking about those things that he couldn't obtain. If a real man wanted the divine equipment, he would snatch it himself. What was the point of asking others for it? Just as William was about to get closer to Moses after obtaining the treasure, William was about to get closer to him. A powerful aura suddenly appeared in the City of Dawn. William and Moses looked at each other. They felt curious at the same time. Why did the idiot thunder god come to the City of Dawn? But before His Royal Highness could go out to greet him, the armored thunder god, Thor, shouted in a loud and clear voice, "Lord of the City of Dawn, come out and fight." Once he said that, the entire City of Dawn was in an uproar. The remaining legendary and epic experts in the city appeared and looked at the ill-intentioned thunder god. William came in front of Thor and could not help but ask, "Are you crazy?" "No, I'm just angry." I just want to beat you up. William looked at little Thunder God, who had a ferocious expression and was full of killing intent. William could not help but frown. Little Thunder God must have been bullied by William. Now he was a little angry. Of course, he could not blame Thor. William had gone a little overboard, but before William could refuse, Thunder God, Thor approached. He glanced at the innocent civilians on the streets and said in a deep voice, "Do you want to fight outside or in the city?" William raised his eyebrows. He could not refuse. "How do we fight?" "You can fight however you want. You can use the divine equipment. Of course, if you want to use your father's blood essence, don't blame me for being ruthless." William was about to say that Thor was too arrogant. However, Moses sent a voice transmission. "Agree to it. You've tricked him for too long, and you've even developed mental demons. He wants a fair battle, but if you use your father's blood essence to increase your battle prowess, he'll definitely use his origin energy, even if it means sacrificing his potential. At that time, you'll definitely die. Then okay, let's walk on the grassland outside." William frowned. It turned out that the reincarnated god had such a trump card. In his previous life, Moses had not died. But because he had used his origin power, he had to hide himself. But then again, William had gone overboard in taking advantage of Thor. If there was a next time, he would take advantage of another god. Of course, it would be best if it was a thunder god. Chapter 599. On the grassland that was blooming with greenery, the small mermen ran in all directions. Some magical beasts and animals who sensed that something was amiss also retreated into the distance. At this moment, William and Thor were staring at each other from the left and right. Their auras were constantly clashing. Both of them had yet to make a move. Their auras had already formed a circular shockwave that crushed everything around them. The ground under their feet sank and became more solid. To their north was the former black lava dukedom. Now, it had been completely occupied by the Serafkin. To their south was a cliff that was more than 80 meters high. The city of Dawn stood at the top like a pearl. They did not intentionally inform outsiders of their duel. But there were many merchants, wanderers, and spies from other forces in the city of Dawn. The Serafkin were not blind. When Thor roared for a duel, it attracted the attention of many people. Within a short period of time, the grassland was surrounded by spectators. Of course, most of them were legendary, epic, and grandmaster experts. Advanced professionals did not dare to go near them. They were afraid that they could not withstand the aftermath of the duel and would die on the spot. When will it start? They have been staring at each other for 30 minutes. The grassland within a radius of 3,000 meters has been crushed by their auras. Could it be that Thor likes the face of the Lord of the City of Dawn? Stop talking nonsense. You two are just grandmasters. What do you know? Legendary experts don't move, but when they do, they will definitely hurt. Rumor has it that the Lord of the City of Dawn has a powerful divine weapon. But Thor does not have any weapons. Can he really stop him? We'll know after watching. The scene returned to the two of them who were less than 10 meters apart. Thunder God, Thor, seemed to have heard something. He suddenly laughed and said, "Are you curious why there are no divine weapons at the place where I died? Why is there only a legendary sword left?" William raised his eyebrows. What did he know? Because ever since I became a god, I no longer use any weapons. My fists, body, and every inch of my muscles are my strongest weapons. Just as he finished speaking, Thunder God, Thor stepped forward and punched like a dragon. Violent energy and thunder locked onto William. Thor said, "You think that you have an invincible fist and physique, but I gave it to you." His Royal Highness raised an eyebrow. "I was the one who snatched it. What the hell are you giving me?" He slashed out with his saber backhandedly. The saber light was like a shuttle, and the thunder saber chi brazenly cut through the fist's shadow and clashed with the fist. Buzz! A sound that sounded like a bell suddenly rang out in the world. A crack appeared on Thor's fist. The heaven-suppressing blade, which was ranked in the top 3 in terms of killing power, was still effective. But William saw an extremely terrifying scene. Thor's body didn't have the so-called aura shield at all. His aura had integrated with his body. Not only was it getting stronger all the time, but it also turned every inch of his skin into an indestructible artifact. This also caused the heaven-shattering blades Magic Breaker and Shield Breaker to have no effect. Fortunately, Shield Breaker only broke 30% of his defense, which was not bad. But if this continued, who knew how long they would have to fight for? I don't believe that you will always be so hard. His Royal Highness narrowed his eyes, drew his saber, and slashed repeatedly. Streams of condensed saber aura abruptly slashed out. In just a few seconds, dozens of saber lights collided with his fists. Pom, 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 pom. Bursts of bell chimes resounded in the sky. The grassland under their feet was torn apart, and cracks continued to spread in all directions. But there was also a sense of astonishment on their faces. William was shocked by the physical strength of the opponent in front of him. Although his health was constantly decreasing, the defense of the areas that he repeatedly attacked was getting higher and higher. After many attacks, he was unable to cause too much damage. This was indeed a little unusual. Thunder God Thor was surprised that the battle energy shield of Lord of the City of Dawn was not ordinary. If he couldn't break it, he wouldn't be able to cause any damage at all. In particular, he discovered a problem. The little rabbit in front of him had a stronger recovery ability. But the moment William wanted to attack again, Thor was faster. He raised his hand and grasped the saber tightly so that it couldn't continue to slash down. Because he discovered a problem. When the heaven-suppressing blade kept hitting him, there would be a continuous residual force in his body. He was a guy with countless years of combat experience. He believed that if he continued to let the saber slash down, he would definitely suffer unimaginable damage. When William saw that Thor was competing with him in terms of strength, he was naturally not convinced. When he unsheathed his saber, he brazenly punched, left fist against right fist. There was a loud explosion. The extremely exaggerated explosion of energy spread out, but because both of them were holding onto the heaven-suppressing blade, they didn't move at all. However, the armor on the surface of their bodies rippled and even let out a creaking sound. This was enough to imagine how exaggerated the aftershock of the impact was on the armor on the surface of their bodies. "Let go of me!" Both of them shouted at the same time. Both of them activated skills that increased their combat power, and their attributes skyrocketed. They punched each other again. Bang! The ground under their feet suddenly collapsed, forming an abyss that was hundreds of meters deep. The resulting shock wave swept across a radius of tens of thousands of meters, and the rumbling sounds were deafening. At the same time, Thor voluntarily let go of the blade and crashed into William's chest, punching out with both fists. William's head and chest were hit hard, and he was sent flying. But when Thor rapidly approached him, William adjusted his state in advance and used a backhand slash. Swish! Light of dawn. The 1,000-meter-long saber light hit Thor in an instant. Thor blocked it with his arms, and the flesh on his arms split open. His golden bones were exposed in the air, and he flew back thousands of meters. But before William could fly higher into the sky, a lightning spear appeared in his hand, and he threw it with all his strength. The lightning spear had already disappeared from everyone's eyes. Because the spear had traveled through time and space, it directly hit William's chest and dragged his body to the ground, causing his entire body to be inserted into the ground. A ring-shaped thunderstorm spread, and the surrounding small ponds instantly evaporated into white smoke. Countless people sucked in a breath of cold air. It was a karma move. It was a move that always hit. This kind of move was too invincible, and it was basically impossible to block. But after William recovered from his shock, he took out his lightning bow and pulled the bow to a full moon. Accompanied by a strong explosion, he suddenly shot an arrow. Instantly, Thor, who was flying towards William, also paused. After flying hundreds of meters in the air, he also fell to the ground. Gosh, it's another karma move that ignores time and space. They're all very strong. A legendary professional exclaimed in disbelief. But at this moment, the moment the thunder god Thor raised his head, William, who had traveled through space with his body of holy thunder, had already swept his heaven-suppressing blade at Thor's head. The thunder god tilted his head to dodge, and his shoulder hit Thor's waist. Bang! There was a loud explosion. Thor grabbed William's waist and flew at high speed. His left hand locked William's throat, and he kept hitting William's head on the ground. This continued for thousands of meters, and a clear gap was formed on the surface of the ground. William's body suddenly transformed into the illusory body of holy thunder, and the strong man's locking technique was ineffective. William passed through Thor's body, and when he arrived behind Thor, he once again transformed into a physical body and suddenly kicked Thor. Bang! A vast shock wave swept in all directions. Thor was forcefully kicked into the ground. The sword flashed. The sword stabbed straight down. Thor held the sword with both hands, but he still could not stop the long sword from stabbing into his abdomen. He pulled out the sword. Fresh blood dripped, and his internal organs were exposed in the air. "Thunder strike, the thunder god," Thor shouted angrily. Boom! A bolt of lightning that looked like a thunder dragon suddenly struck down. William was about to move, but he was immediately hit and fell to the ground. But both of them were thunder professionals, so this kind of thunder damage was not too high for them. But William felt the special effect of the Een thunder again. As expected, Thor suddenly activated his thunder domain, and electric arcs instantly spread out to a radius of 10,000 meters. The Een thunder buff in William's body was detonated, and he spat out blood. The blood splattered all over his helmet, and his body involuntarily retreated. But William was the kind of person who would not retaliate. He also used his thunder domain, and the grassland completely turned into a thunder domain. The thunder and lightning from both sides intertwined, and ear-piercing thunderous sounds were constantly heard. Under the enhancement of their respective domains, their bodies turned into thunder bodies, and they kept colliding. At this moment, time and space seemed to be unable to bind them. The more they fought, the stronger they became. The more they fought, the fiercer they became. Almost every inch of space was left with the thunder and lightning that they had moved. They started to ignore the defensive measures. They started to use their trump cards to enhance their strength. At almost the same time, their combat power surpassed the peak of the legendary level, and they had the aura of a sage. The two of them were like two thunder dragons that constantly pierced through the sky. Every time they exchanged blows, they wanted to detonate the space within a radius of 1,000 meters. They had been fighting since the beginning. The battlefield was constantly moving. They had moved horizontally for tens of kilometers. Everywhere they passed, there was a scene of devastation. Cracks that were hundreds of meters deep, crisscross canyons, and the grassland had completely become a barren abyss canyon. The surviving small mermen were on the verge of tears. If the two of them had not moved from east to west, but from north to south, the City of Dawn would have been fine due to the barrier. But the Serafkin that controlled the Black Lava Dukedom would have suffered an unimaginable disaster. However, this magnificent scene appeared before everyone's eyes just like that. There were more and more onlookers, and more of them were dumbfounded. Some of the board sages came here and discovered that both of them had the combat power of a sage. Although they could not be compared to sages, they felt a little jealous. That was right. They were really jealous, because most of the sages in the legendary realm were unable to explode with the combat power of a sage, not even a little bit. And these professionals who had such strength at the legendary stage were already so powerful. Basically, as long as they entered the sage realm, they would not be weak among the sages. But at this moment, accompanied by a soft hum from the heaven suppressing blade, a pair of fists roared. Both of them retreated thousands of meters. Thor, the thunder god, was hit by the 100th slash. Cracks appeared all over his body at the same time, and blood sprayed into the sky. His HP instantly dropped by 50%, and his aura fell to the legendary realm. His body also staggered and half-knelt on the ground. William did not have it easy either. He could not withstand the Shadow Thunder buff. His chest caved in, and his heart exploded several times. His internal organs were smashed into a pile of rotten flesh, and his aura had also plummeted. But just as the two of them were about to continue fighting, boom! Lava suddenly gushed out from the ground. A legendary level Balrog, wielding a flaming sword, crawled out while howling, as if he was angry that someone had disturbed his slumber. However, When he crawled out halfway, he saw that hundreds of legendary creatures, countless epic-rank creatures, and 2 experts with surging killing intent were staring at him. The legendary flame demon, who was thousands of meters tall, trembled and swallowed his saliva. He said in a touched tone, "You might not believe it, but the reason I appeared in this situation is that I have decided to betray the darkness and join the light." Chapter 600. A duel that was supposed to continue was disrupted by a flame demon that was sleeping soundly in the magma. William and Thor looked at each other and decided not to continue fighting at the same time. That was because if they were to continue fighting, the only outcome would be that both sides would suffer. Even if they were to take out their trump cards, it would be meaningless. Thor, the god of thunder, was a fierce man who had refined his body. He had fused pure thunder-attributed chi into his body, causing his defense and recovery to become extremely tyrannical. Fortunately, William's heaven-suppressing blade was not for nothing. With every 100 layers of heaven-suppressing buff, unimaginable power would erupt. Even if a layer of turtle shell appeared on the surface of his body, it would be useless. If not for the prince's low luck, Thor wouldn't have only lost 50% of his HP. Instead, he would have triggered the instant death effect and died instantly. William seemed to have unparalleled defense. Now that he had the divinity equipment set, the Shadow Thunder buff hidden in his body was too difficult to deal with. Thor should have had this talent, causing him to detonate the Shadow Thunder buff every 2 attacks. Each attack was aimed at William's internal organs. Although William looked unharmed on the outside, his insides had already turned into a mess. Hence, Thor decisively turned his head and left. He said, "That's enough. You've improved a lot. You're not considered weak among the Thunder professionals. Even if you're the reincarnation of the Thunder God, I don't care. But remember, every path will become a single plank bridge in the end. There are many enemies you need to defeat. If you want to wield the true power of thunder, you'll have to face me in the end." William raised his eyebrows and replied, "Moses said that you have an inner demon, but why do I feel that you're giving me a way out?" Thor had walked far away and was about to transform into lightning and disappear. But at this moment, he turned his head expressionlessly and raised his middle finger. Duck cough sh*t. Crack! A bolt of lightning hit him again. Thor did not fall to the ground. He just turned around and disappeared with his smoking head. However, when he said this, everyone was silent. Some legendary big shots were dumbfounded. What kind of dialect was this? However, many advanced and grandmaster professionals hurriedly explained, "We have more contact with the Chosen Ones. It seems to be their scolding dialect. It should be go eat sh*t. William raised his eyebrows and ignored this be***star who was struck by lightning all day. But after glancing at the flame demon who was stuck between a rock and a hard place, he said coldly, "Look at you. You still have a heart for the light. Look at what you've done. Do you know how much destructive damage you've brought to these plains?" The prince pointed at the battlefield with a radius of hundreds of thousands of meters. It no longer looked like a grassland, but a cliff. Extinguish the fire on your body and restore the terrain. Otherwise, you could just wait for your death. Subsequently, the Lord of the City of Dawn returned to the city in a disdainful manner. Many spectators blinked. They did not expect such a shameless action. The legendary Balrog, on the other hand, breathed a sigh of relief when it saw the terrain of the great rift valley around it. It hurriedly turned its great sword into a 9-toothed harrow and began to dig the ground with familiarity, giving off the air of a hard-working old farmer. It had to be said, the 1,000-meter-tall flame demon was helping to restore the terrain. This speed was indeed much faster than that of many enchanters. Many legendary and epic professionals did not intend to kill this flame demon. It was because this flame demon seemed to be labeled as a member of the City of Dawn. But they still flew to the City of Dawn, intending to take advantage of the situation. It was not only because William's current strength was impressive. He had the combat power of a sage. It was also because his magical Gatling gun was really impressive. Now, the entire legendary continent was on fire. Of course, it was also impressive when it self-destructed. Besides enchanters and great enchanters, No great mages could participate in the deciphering. It cannot be helped. The shockwave of the explosion was too strong. Many magic research facilities have been blown to pieces. Many research results, experimental products, and mages have been blown to ashes. Now, the research work on the magical weapons of the City of Dawn had been moved to the underground research facilities or the magic towers of the great enchanters. However, if someone were to keep an eye on the magic towers of the major forces all day long, they would notice black smoke coming out of some of the windows from time to time. Otherwise, there would be a sudden rumbling explosion. In the City of Dawn, an earth element enchanter and his friend were walking on the streets of the City of Dawn. He could not help but complain. D*MN, my magic tower is strong enough, and I'm an earth element mage. If not, I would have lost a lot of things when the magical Gatling gun exploded. You're considered lucky. I don't know if you've heard, but this is the first time an enchanter has been killed in an experiment. D*MN, who's that unlucky? I think it's the Palace of Darkness. At this time, a dark warrior happened to pass by them expressionlessly and coldly glanced at them. The two great enchanters glared back. You're just a little master. Why are you showing off in front of us? We'll kill you with one slap. But the dark warrior shouted, Guards, guards, these two outsiders have released their killing intent. They want to kill me in the City of Dawn. City Lord, save me. D*MN, what a shameless guy. Let's go, let's go. The two great enchanters turned and ran to the diplomatic office of the City of Dawn. They could not afford to offend them. The City of Dawn was famous for its good security. It had even been ranked first in the top 10 cities of the legendary continent. The introduction stated, as long as the chosen ones are not around, the crime rate is 0. There are no incidents of darkness. The environment is beautiful, and the greenery rate is 80%. The density of the magic is very high. The security team is made up of handsome men and beautiful women. Even though there were many races living in the city, most of them were courteous and hospitable. In addition, the City of Dawn was powerful and had a powerful barrier. It was very safe. It was the city that countless people in the legendary continent wanted to live in. The Lord of the City of Dawn was a very protective person. After being selected as one of the top 10 cities, he said one thing. Whoever dared to do anything illegal in the city would be caught, and their cultivation would be sealed. Then they would be thrown into the mines to mine with the beastmen. Even having a sage realm father wouldn't be of any use. If there were no accidents, the Dark Warrior should be a local. He had studied the rules of the City of Dawn very thoroughly. Otherwise, he would not have dared to be so arrogant in front of the two great enchanters. Your Highness, these people intend to buy a batch of magical weapons. Lautner looked at William, who was deep in thought, and said softly. William raised his eyebrows and said, Sell them. If there are magical crystals, sell them. Do they intend to continue their research, or what? Some are buying in bulk, while others are only buying the minimum amount. I reckon that they have not given up on deciphering the core runes. They have to buy it sooner or later. If they want to research, let them. William waved his hand and sent Lautner away. The price had been set. If they wanted to buy it, they could buy it. If not, they could get lost. It was an exclusive industry and an industry monopoly. What was William doing now? Of course, he was admiring the endowments and experience that little Thor had given him. It had to be said, Thor was indeed fierce. Although he looked arrogant, he was too arrogant. Thor's attitude towards William was not good. It was too normal. Who would be happy when Thor was bullied by Thor? Furthermore, Thor would give him endowments every time he challenged him. Thor could not bear to do that. So William did not care about Thor's attitude towards him. He even wanted Thor to challenge him a few more times. He even wanted Thor to stay at his home and spar with him when he was free. However, Thor was also a proud Lord God. It was impossible for him to be like a little brother and follow his ass all day long. Even if William wanted to use Thor's looks to increase his affinity, the possibility was very small. Unless he liked men. As for the endowments that he had obtained, it was really good. Especially for him. It could reduce the pressure on him to experience a lot. Law of Thunder. Endowment, you can use a portion of the Law of Thunder to reduce the experience required to level up Thunder skills by half. It's not bad, but it still feels like I'm not gaining anything. William smacked his lips. He was looking forward to the rewards for his next duel with Thor. At this moment, there was a knock on the door again. "Come in." Lautner pushed the door open and entered. Behind him was an old man with a black pug on his shoulder. It looked very ordinary and did not belong to the magical beast category. But when William saw the badge on his chest, he used his insight and his eyes lit up. "I'm Forbes, the president of the Eastern Chamber of Commerce Alliance. I'm here to greet the Lord of the City of Dawn." The old man went straight to the point and introduced himself. William was not arrogant. He laughed and said, "It's an honor for the City of Dawn to have President Forbes here. Who doesn't know that President Forbes is a walking gold coin seeder? Wherever he goes, there will be a path paved with gold coins." "You must be joking. It's more like a path paved with gold coins." The corners of William's mouth twitched. He poured a cup of tea for Lautner. "President Forbes, you rarely show up. What brings you to the City of Dawn today?" To be honest, the Eastern Chamber of Commerce Alliance was very rich. It was the wealthiest chamber of commerce in the 4 regions. Its business channels were connected to the other continents. Otherwise, how would a normal chamber of commerce dare to participate in the fight for the throne of the human empires? The Eastern Chamber of Commerce Alliance had a large business. If Caesar lost the fight for the throne, they would not be afraid of losing their business. At most, they would be suppressed by the war-ending empire and shift their business focus to other empires. Just when the old man in the legendary realm was about to speak, the black pug on his shoulder suddenly said, "Ah, I'm finally getting used to this body." William's expression changed. He used his insight. He could not believe that the guy in front of him had been possessed. How was it possible? He was a top legendary expert in the Eastern Chamber of Commerce Alliance. He had countless guards. How could he be possessed? But Lautner would only learn from what he had heard. When old Forbes saw that William's expression was not quite right, he laughed. "Interesting. Many people have been deceived by me. I bought Lautner from a chosen one for a total of 1,000 gold coins." It only knows this sentence, but it sounds really interesting. The corners of William's mouth twitched. Was Lautner sick? Why was he acting like a Chinibu at such an old age? That was scary. But old Forbes continued. "We'll work together to develop magical weapons. I'll invest, and the City of Dawn will be in charge of manufacturing and increasing production. I'll also be in charge of promoting the weapons to the entire God's continent. What do you think? This is my exclusive business. Since you've put it this way, there's room for negotiation." William narrowed his eyes. Old Forbes also sat up straight and sneered. "My old bones are ready, come on." Subsequently, he spat out fragrant saliva. Chapter 601. After His Royal Highness's glib tongue, witty words, and a crazy war of words, His Royal Highness's eyes widened. In the end, William decided to split the shares 50-50. He had no choice. This was the highest goal that William had achieved with his shameless actions. After all, the Eastern Alliance Chamber of Commerce could expand their trade routes to the 7 continents and sell them to all the top powers, kingdoms, and empires. This was something that the City of Dawn could not achieve. Furthermore, Forbes had decided to increase his investment to increase the production of the City of Dawn. He did not intend to ask for the secret of the rune core. In fact, the City of Dawn had already benefited greatly from this. It seemed like the gods' continents were about to merge. By that time, the City of Dawn would be able to open up its own trade routes. But it would take at least 10 years for William to achieve this goal. 10 years. It seemed to be no more and no less. But in these 10 years, William was sure that he could earn a lot of money from the magical weapons. He could even change the war situation on the gods' continents, so that the major powers would not dare to easily start a war. Because of these weapons, besides the legendary professionals, the epic professionals were no longer invincible. A few magic annihilation guns aimed at the epic professionals. If one shot broke the epic professional shields, the remaining shots would hit. If they were not careful, they would be killed. It would not be easy to start a large-scale war. Actually, I want to make it easier for the gods' continents to fight against the Dark World. William sighed. The Third Darkness invasion had caused too many losses. 10 years later, the Dark World had invaded. Even if there were many outposts, it was useless. The legendary devils were the generals, and the Dark Lords were in charge of the battlefield. In a short period of time, the gods' continents had suffered great losses. The war had lasted for more than 10 years, and 30 billion people had died in this war. Since he could not change the timing of the darkness invasion, nor could he deal with the Dark Lords, he could only try to increase the combat power of his side. If he only cared about whether the weapons he sold would increase the strength of some of his opponents, he would be too petty. As a man, I have to look at everything from the big picture. I'm no longer the petty Lord of Dawn. William raised his eyebrows. He did not think that selling the magical weapons was an act of aiding the enemy. Only by defeating the Dark World could he have a future of his own. If the gods' continents were ruled by the Dark World, there would be no need to talk about being the Lord of the Fourth Era. In fact, he had already done a lot and changed the situation. For instance, the Harpies hadn't expanded their territory in a frenzy. However, Odin had stopped them. He had suggested that it would be better to wait for the Dark World to occupy some territory before the Harpies snatched it away. This would be far better than snatching from the human empire. Not only would this prevent a war between the two races, but it would also preserve the strength of both sides. 3 days later, the group of people who came to buy magical weapons left one after another. At the same time, the City of Dawn and the Eastern Alliance Chamber of Commerce announced that the Eastern Alliance would provide the capital and the City of Dawn would provide the technology to establish the Dawn Mana Weapons Chamber of Commerce. They would strive to sell the Dawn Mana weapons to the entire world. As for the construction site of the Dawn Mana Weapon Chamber of Commerce, it was naturally located in an alternate dimension that Moses had specially built. If one wanted to enter the alternate dimension, they would have to go through extremely strict checks. They would also have to identify the door with an ink tablet. Trying to steal the technology? He couldn't even enter the door. 1 month later, the coastal forces of the legendary continent were constantly being harassed. Initially, the forces that bought large quantities of magical weapons were usually coastal countries or certain forces. Among them, the heavy magical Gatling guns and magical annihilation guns were the most popular. This was because they had discovered that these weapons were like divine weapons to the beast hordes. However, the sales of the handheld magical Gatling guns and magical pistols were much lower. But with the upgrade of the magical weapons, the number of cannon gunners had increased exponentially. As for William, he basically had nothing to do during this period of time. Other than killing small monsters on the warship and gaining some experience, he basically had nothing to do. The version had been updated for a full 10 years. It was impossible for him to do missions every day. Most of the time, he was very leisurely. It was during this period of leisure time that Yi Zichen took a deep breath. The dwarves, who were helping to dig underground and explore the battlefield of the gods, sent him a message. A god's temple that is almost completely preserved. When he heard this news, William was slightly taken aback. In his previous life, he had indeed known that a god's temple had appeared here. But it was a pity that the NPC forces, who had not intended to pay attention to this place, had decisively snatched it away. They did not give the players a chance to enter the god's temple. Thus, after a slight hesitation, he immediately walked into the tunnel with the Dream of Eternity scroll in hand. Very soon, William arrived at a very deep place beneath the City of Dawn. It had become a huge underground space. Dwarves were everywhere, digging and repairing. Ever since Odin had established the Lonely Mountain Dwarf Kingdom, he had brought many dwarves with him. But after he had stabilized his throne, he sent more dwarves to help the City of Dawn with some difficult missions. More importantly, as long as the City of Dawn could provide magical metals, Odin would let his clansmen help to forge weapons and equipment for free. This was a huge profit for the City of Dawn. When an epic dwarf saw William, he immediately trotted over and said, "Your Highness, the location of the God's Temple is not directly beneath the City of Dawn. It should be somewhere under the Rainbow Lake. It was just excavated today. Were there any accidents?" William nodded and asked as he walked. "No. Ever since we discovered the God's Temple, we found an earth enchanter to help us clear the surrounding obstacles. We did not enter without permission." "Very good. Your excavation work is very good. I'll give you a 7-day holiday. No, Your Highness, please don't give me a holiday. Digging is my favorite, especially when I can excavate the ruins of the gods. Many of my clansmen are envious of me. The epic dwarf hurriedly begged. The corners of William's mouth twitched. No wonder they could excavate the lair of the flame demons. 3 minutes later, William looked at the almost intact god's temple in front of him. He recalled that the remains of the god's battlefield were scattered around this god's temple. Was there a possibility? What unimaginable treasures were in this god's temple? World treasure? Or is it something that can allow one to become a Lord God? After all, there shouldn't be any Lord Gods here. William had just finished speaking when he immediately frowned and shook his head. No, the Thunder God's severed hand is not far away from Stormy Island. His hand was cut off by the Sword God. That means that there should be Lord Gods on this battlefield. But they didn't die. Or perhaps they didn't die here. Who does this God's temple belong to? What's in it that caused the Thunder God and his clansmen to appear here? William inhaled a breath of cold air. He felt that something was wrong. He hurriedly transmitted a message to Moses, but the person who replied was not Moses. The Blood Moon, which decisively sent a video call. She revealed her cute and obedient face and said, "Master is in seclusion. He said that he's getting closer to becoming a sage, so he doesn't want to chat with you. Your Highness, if you have anything to say, you can tell me." F***CK off. Is Moses really not here? William raised his eyebrows. The little witch revealed a pitiful expression. She glanced to the side and said, "Master said that he's not here. F***CK off." William rolled his eyes. This idiot was terrible at lying. But since Moses did not want to tell him, she obviously knew that this god's temple was probably the place to use the Dream of Eternity scroll. It was up to William to decide what to do. William took a deep breath. He asked the dwarfs to leave the surroundings of the god's temple. When he walked to the door of the god's temple and was about to dig out a human-shaped door, he suddenly stopped himself. What if I dig out a hole and it becomes ineffective? William glanced at the many small holes on the door. He had no choice but to embed a large number of magical crystals into the door. At that moment, a buzzing sound could be heard. Hundreds of magical crystals turned into powder, and lines of energy flow appeared on the patterns on the door. Click! The door of the god's temple automatically opened. William took a step and entered. There was another click. The god's temple automatically closed. William curiously glanced behind him. This god's temple had some controls. Why did it automatically close the door? William did not hesitate. A layer of thunder shield appeared on his body to illuminate the murals on both sides of the tunnel. The starry sky, the sun, and the moon appeared on both sides of the wall. William did not see the past events of the gods that he was looking forward to. There were only some scenes that he could not understand. As he walked further, he discovered that the galaxy was constantly changing. It seemed to have transformed into a long river of time. What was even more impressive was that, after William used his insight, he discovered that the stars on the murals were actually legendary quality sands of time. They're too rich. Is this the God's Temple of Time? William frowned. That could not be right. The God's Temple should not be this small. This meant that this was the God's Temple of Time, not the God's Temple of Time. But how could a mere time god shrine attract so many people here? William was curious. But when he pushed open the door of the God's Temple, he was completely stunned. The god statue had collapsed and shattered, and the ground was covered with black blood. There was also a skeleton without any divinity that was casually thrown on the ground. Beside the skeleton, there was a well-preserved crystal ball lying quietly on the ground. Meanwhile, a glowing figure slowly appeared from the crystal ball. It seemed to be waiting for William's arrival. Before William could ask, the incarnation, whose face could not be seen clearly, said, "You're finally here, fated one." William took a step forward. He was about to ask what had caused so many gods to fight endlessly for it. But the shadow dissipated into thin air with a laugh, not giving him chance. But at the same time, something strange happened. The scroll in his hand turned into starlight and disappeared at the same time. Before William could recover from his shock, time had passed. The scenery in front of him kept changing. He saw the division of the Sunset Empire. He had seen the gods' continent become a mess because of the war between hundreds of saints. Countless people had died in that disaster. He saw the world tree near the starry sky. The elves were invincible. He saw the world controlled by the great dragon. All races submitted to it. He saw the high and mighty gods. Humans, elves, winged people, dwarves, and all living beings were kneeling and praying.